I stared at the awakening stone, my heart dropping into my stomach. The results were flashing in bright, cold letters. No spiritual root. I felt like I'd been struck by lightning. The school playground, once filled with whispers of anticipation, erupted into a chaotic roar of mockery. No spiritual root? Is this a joke? Someone shouted. He's the top student in Mungshi High School, and he doesn't even have a root? That's a first. I guess there's a thin line between a genius and trash, another voice sneered. What's the point of being a master of cultivation theory if you can't even touch chi? Hey, look on the bright side. After graduation, he can go straight to the factory and spend his life tightening screws. Or better yet, I heard his dad is a butcher. He can go kill pigs for a living. I didn't say a word. I couldn't. My face was a mask of stone, but inside, I was crumbling. I squeezed my fists so hard my nails dug into my palms, drawing blood. This was a world where spiritual energy had returned. Monsters roamed the wild, and cultivation was the only way to survive and thrive. I was a transmigrator. I'd ended up in the body of a top-tier student with the same name, and I really thought I had the protagonist's luck. I thought I was destined for greatness. But no spiritual root meant I couldn't feel the energy of heaven and earth. I couldn't cultivate. My life was essentially over before it began. Zhangting, 6th grade waterwood root, the instructor announced. The crowd gasped. I looked up instinctively. Zhangting was my girlfriend, or she had been, before I took over this body. Seeing her achieve a 6th grade root made the bitterness in my mouth even sharper. Roots were ranked from 1 to 9, followed by immortal, earth, and heaven grades. A 6th grade was incredible. I walked back to the line, head low. Zhangting walked straight toward me. I tried to force a smile. Tingting, congratulations. Young fan, she said, her voice cold and distant. Let's break up. I froze. Break up? You didn't even awaken a trash grade root, she said, looking at me like I was something she'd stepped in on the sidewalk. You're not worthy of me anymore. I stared at her. Her arrogance was like a physical wall. Fine, I replied, my voice flat. Let's break up. Also, she added, don't call me Tingting anymore. People might get the wrong idea. I didn't answer. I just tightened my grip until my veins popped. Brother fan. A girl ran over, her face full of genuine worry. It was Li Fei, my childhood friend. She had big, watery eyes and cute little fangs when she smiled. Even if you don't have a root, you're still the best to me. The best? Zhangting scoffed. The best at what? Killing livestock at the slaughterhouse. Li Fei whirled around, her eyes flashing with sudden power. What he does in the future is none of your business. Zhangting flinched, her face turning red. Feier, it's okay, I said, pulling Li Fei back. Forget it. Li Fei, the instructor called. Brother fan, I'm going to go test mine. I'll be right back, she promised with a sweet smile. I nodded. Good luck. She stepped up to the stone. Suddenly, a pillar of blinding light shot into the sky. It was so bright it made everyone shield their eyes. It was 10 times more intense than Zhangting's. Li Fei, immortal grade. Mutated ice root. The instructor's voice trembled with shock. The playground exploded. An immortal grade root? And a mutated one at that? That was practically Earth grade potential. Zhangting's face turned pale with envy. Li Fei ran back to me, ignoring the teachers and students trying to swarm her. Brother fan, you protected me when we were little. From now on, I'll protect you. I felt a sting of pride and shame. Okay. Li Fei, don't ruin your future for a loser, Zhangting hissed. I'll do whatever I want, Li Fei snapped back. Zhangting shut up and stomped away. My homeroom teacher, Zhang Dongliang, walked over and patted my shoulder. He told me to take a few days off to rest. I thanked him and walked away, my back feeling the weight of 1,000 mocking stares. I bit my lip until it bled. As I walked home like a ghost, a stray dog suddenly lunged from an alley, barking and snapping at my heels. Are you kidding me? I warned. The humans laugh at me, and now even a dog thinks it can take a piece of me. The anger I'd been suppressing boiled over. Usually, I'd run. Not today. I lunged at the dog, grabbed it by the throat with a manic strength, and slammed it against a rock. Asterisk ding. Killed a stray dog. Points +2. Asterisk. I jumped back, startled. A virtual panel appeared in my vision. Asterisk system note. Use points to draw for roots, treasures, and bloodlines. 100 points per draw. Asterisk. A system? It finally showed up. I let out a hysterical laugh. People passing by looked at me like I was insane, but I didn't care. If killing a dog gave me points, what about chickens? Pigs? My dad worked at the slaughterhouse. I could become a butcher tomorrow. I rushed home and saw 2 hornets buzzing around some dried meat on the porch. I grabbed a fly swatter and smashed them. Asterisk ding. Killed a hornet. Points plus 0.2. Asterisk. My eyes lit up. I didn't even need to wait for the slaughterhouse. There was a massive hornet's nest in the woods behind my house. I ran inside, grabbed a can of insecticide and a lighter. I used to do this as a kid, turning the spray into a flamethrower. I reached the woods and spotted the nest. It was the size of a basketball. My heart hammered against my ribs. If I messed this up, I'd be stung to death. Then I remembered the laughter at school. I remembered Zhang Ting's cold eyes. I flicked the lighter and squeezed the nozzle. A jet of fire engulfed the nest. Asterisk ding. Killed a hornet. Points plus 0.2. Asterisk. Asterisk ding. Killed a hornet. Points plus 0.2. Asterisk. The notifications started flooding in. I was going to get those 100 points. I was going to change my fate. The sound of notifications flooded my ears. One after another, the points rolled in. My heart, which had been hammering with nerves just moments ago, finally began to steady. I stood there in the smoke and heat for 10 minutes until the last hornet in that nest was dead. I checked my total, 62.6 points. At 0.2 points per hornet, I had just wiped out over 300 of them. It was a good start, but I was still far from the 100 points I needed for a draw. I felt a pang of disappointment. It looked like I'd have to wait until tomorrow and head to the slaughterhouse with my dad. I walked back inside, clutching the insecticide, and noticed a few flies buzzing over the table. If hornets gave points, would flies? I grabbed a swatter and smashed 7 or 8 of them in a blur of movement. Silence. No chime, no notification. I sighed. Apparently, flies weren't worth the system's time. That evening, my parents came home from work. I sat them down and told them the truth. I hadn't awakened a root. I told them I wanted to go to the slaughterhouse tomorrow to help out. My father, Yang Dajuan, tried to comfort me, telling me it wasn't the end of the world, but I wouldn't budge. Eventually, he gave in and agreed to take me. Late that night, I lay in bed staring at the virtual panel. I was 40 points short. I had a gut feeling that if I could just get that first draw, everything would change. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. It was a message from my class teacher, Zhang Dongliang, tagging everyone in the group chat. He wanted everyone who had awakened a root to list their attributes and grades. He reminded us that there were only 100 days left until the college entrance exams. To get into a top-tier university, you needed to be at the late stage of body refining. To get into the elite schools like Tsinghua or Peking, you needed to reach the early stage of qi refining. The chat exploded. People started listing their stats. Some were confident with grade 4 roots. Others were devastated with grade 1 trash roots that would barely get them into a vocational school. Then, a message popped up that made my blood boil. It was Zhang Ting. She suggested that everyone without a root should be kicked out of the group. She said the exams had nothing to do with us anymore. The chat went dead. Out of 50 students, less than a third had awakened. Her arrogance insulted almost everyone, but she didn't care. She kept typing, her words dripping with spite. I turned off the screen. I was angry, but more than that, I was determined. I was going to wake up a root and slap that smug look right off her face. The next morning, I followed my father to the slaughterhouse. The air was thick with the metallic scent of blood and the screams of livestock. My skin crawled. I was terrified. "Old Yang, why'd you bring your kid here?" One of the workers shouted. "Why else?" another mocked. I heard his genius son flopped. Didn't even get a trash root. That's rough. My father's face turned bright red. I saw the mockery in their eyes and squeezed my fists until my knuckles turned white. I took a deep breath, pushed down the fear, and picked up the blade. I started learning how to kill. Asterisk ding. Killed a chicken. Points plus 1. Asterisk. Asterisk ding. Killed a duck. Points plus 1. Asterisk. The day blurred into a cycle of blood and feathers. My nerves vanished, replaced by a cold focus. Finally, just as the shift was ending, I hit the 100-point mark. I dropped my knife and bolted for the bathroom. Drawl, I screamed internally. A massive virtual wheel appeared in my vision, spinning at a dizzying speed. It slowed down, the needle ticking past various colors until it landed on a translucent, white segment. Asterisk ding. Congratulations. You have drawn a heaven-grade void root. Asterisk. Next draw, 500 points. My eyes nearly popped out of my head. A void root? I checked the description. It was the strongest heaven-grade root in existence. It gave a 500% boost to cultivation speed, was compatible with every element, and increased comprehension and breakthrough rates significantly. My hands shook. I leaned against the bathroom wall and cried. Heaven doesn't abandon those who try. I finally had a root, and not just any root, but the best one on the planet. Nobody would ever call me a loser again. Son, my father's voice called out from the hallway. I turned to him, my voice hoarse and trembling. Dad, I have a root. I have a heaven-grade void root. My father froze. His eyes went red with emotion, but I could see the doubt in them. He nodded and played along, but he didn't believe me. He probably thought the trauma of failing had finally made me snap. He just patted my shoulder and led me to the bike for the ride home. Back in my room, I saw 99+ messages on WeChat. Most were from Li Fei. She was worried because I hadn't been at school or answered her texts. I quickly messaged her back, apologizing and explaining I was working at the slaughterhouse. While waiting for her reply, I checked the class chat again. Zhang Ting was still at it, boasting about her grade 6 waterwood root and how she'd reached the body refining stage in 2 weeks. Her idols and simps were falling over themselves to praise her. I just laughed. She was bragging about a grade 6 scrap of trash while I was sitting on a heaven-grade miracle. I decided to stay quiet. I'd give them all a real shock in 100 days. Li Fei finally replied. She'd been in the shower. She even sent a photo of her legs, still damp and pale, which made my heart skip a beat. We talked until 11 before saying goodnight. The next day, I was back at the slaughterhouse. The system costs were scaling up. I needed 500 points for the next draw now. But something had changed. Asterisk ding. Killed a chicken. Points +1. Cultivation +55. Asterisk. Asterisk ding. Killed a chicken. Points +1. Cultivation +55. Asterisk. Because I now had a root, every kill gave me actual cultivation progress. With a 500% boost, I realized I could reach the first stage of body refining in just 3 days. If I kept this up for 100 days, where would I be? Golden core? Nascent soul? The idea of a nascent soul student showing up for a high school exam was hilarious. By the end of the shift, I checked my stats. My progress bar for the body refining stage was already at 54%. Tomorrow, I'd officially be a cultivator. I'd be faster, stronger, and ready to learn martial arts. Hey, isn't that Yang Fan? A voice called out as I walked toward the exit. Haven't seen you at school in days. So, you really followed your dad to the slaughterhouse to become a butcher? I was riding on the back of my dad's 3-wheeled cart, heading home after a long shift, when we ran into Zhang Ting. I tried to ignore her, but she wasn't having it. She blocked our path, her face twisted into a smug, mocking grin. None of your business, I snapped. I wasn't in the mood to play nice with her. It's definitely not my business, she sneered, looking at me with pure disgust. I guess the bottom of the social ladder is exactly where a peasant like you belongs. Doing dirty, exhausting work like a common laborer. I looked at her like she was an idiot. I didn't say another word. I just signaled my dad to keep driving, leaving her behind in the dust. Go ahead, laugh now, I thought. Soon enough, I'll show you who the real ignorant clown is. The next afternoon, everything changed. I was at the slaughterhouse, my knife mid-swing. As I finished off another chicken, a massive surge of spiritual energy exploded through my body. My bones felt like they were vibrating, and a wave of raw power flooded my veins. Asterisk ding. Target killed. Cultivation +55. Asterisk. Asterisk ding. Breakthrough achieved. Current realm. Early stage of body refining. Asterisk. I clenched my fists. I could feel my explosive power had multiplied several times over. I was officially a cultivator. I realized I didn't need to stay in this slaughterhouse anymore. Tomorrow, I could head outside the city walls to hunt the beasts that had mutated from the spiritual recovery. That night, I told my dad I wasn't going back to the slaughterhouse. My dad, Yang Dajuan, breathed a sigh of relief. He smiled, thinking I was finally moving past the depression of not having a root. He had no idea I was already stronger than most adults. At dawn, I finished breakfast, tucked my dad's heavy butcher knife into my belt, and headed straight for the city gates. Inside the city was a safe zone, but outside was a different world. It was dangerous. The animals that had absorbed spiritual energy had mutated into fierce creatures. Deep in the forests, true demonic beasts roamed, territory reserved for powerful cultivators. Since I was a total newbie with zero survival experience, I decided to stick to the small woods near the city gate. It didn't take long to find my first target, a wild rabbit. Except, this thing was the size of a goose. It wasn't even afraid of me. I pulled out my butcher knife and lunged. 2 days of nonstop slaughtering had made my movements fast and lethal. 2 quick slashes, and it was over. Asterisk ding. Killed a mutated rabbit. Cultivation plus 128. Points plus 3. Asterisk. I grinned. Because these creatures had absorbed spiritual energy, the rewards were way higher than the domestic chickens back at the shop. I had definitely come to the right place. I spent the entire day hunting. Asterisk ding. Killed a mutated hedgehog. Cultivation plus 155. Points plus 4. Asterisk ding. Killed a mutated rabbit. Cultivation plus 128. Asterisk. By evening, I finally stopped to catch my breath. My total points had hit 503. It was time for another draw. I opened the system, and the massive roulette wheel appeared, spinning with a blur of legendary treasures. My heart hammered against my ribs until it finally clicked into place. Asterisk ding. Congratulations. You have drawn a high-grade Earth rank technique, Dugu 9 Swords. Asterisk. Next draw cost 1,000 points. My eyes nearly popped out of my head. The Dugu 9 Swords? The legendary technique of Dugu Chobai? It consisted of 9 stances and 81 variations. At its peak, it allowed a user to move like a ghost and kill without leaving a trace. In this world, techniques were ranked: mortal, yellow, earth, heaven, and god. Each rank was split into low, mid, and high. An earth rank high-grade technique was absolutely insane for someone at my level. I clicked learn, and the knowledge flooded my brain instantly. I checked my stats. Name, Young Fan. Realm, early body refining, 78.17%. Technique, Dugu 9 Swords, level 1. Weapon, butcher knife. Points, 3. I was about to celebrate when I heard a low, guttural grunting. My blood ran cold. Emerging from the brush was a wild boar king, the size of a small bull. This wasn't just a mutated animal. This was a first-order demonic beast. There's a massive difference. A body-refining cultivator can handle a mutated animal, but you usually need to be in the chi refining stage to take on a first-order beast. I wasn't even at the middle stage of body refining yet. The boar king spotted me. It lowered its head and charged with the speed of a freight train. Screw it, I yelled, my adrenaline redlining. There was no time to be afraid. I couldn't outrun this thing. If I didn't fight, I was dead. I gripped my butcher knife, my feet moving in the mysterious patterns of the Dugu 9 Swords. For 20 minutes, it was a dance with death. I dodged tusks by inches, my body pushed to its absolute limit. Finally, I saw an opening. I dived, swinging my blade in a desperate arc. The heavy butcher knife buried itself deep into the boar king's heart. The beast let out a piercing shriek, its massive body crashing to the ground. It convulsed twice and went still. Asterisk ding. Killed first-order demonic beast, boar king. Points plus 20. Cultivation plus 1, 0, 88. Asterisk. Asterisk ding. Breakthrough. Current realm. Middle stage of body refining. Asterisk. The knife slipped from my hand as I collapsed. I was gasping for air, my lungs burning. If I hadn't landed that hit, I'd be a red smear on the grass right now. After resting, I harvested the valuable materials from the boar and stuffed them into a sack. Back in the city, these parts were worth a fortune. I found a material shop and traded everything in. The shop owner looked at me like I had 2 heads. He couldn't believe a kid my age was bringing in first-order materials. 3,665 spirit coins, he said, counting out the cash. I held the money, my heart racing. At this rate, my parents would never have to work another day in their lives. When I got home, I took a long hot shower and crashed on my bed, scrolling through my phone. The class group chat was buzzing as usual. "Guys, my progress bar is at 12%, one student bragged. "I'll reach body refining in a month for sure." "I'm at 33%, another chimed in. "I'll be the first genius in class to break through." Then Zhang Ting jumped in. "I'm at 40%. Try to keep up, losers." The simps went wild, calling her a goddess and predicting she'd get into the top universities. Suddenly, someone posted a blurry photo of a student in our school uniform from behind, standing at a materials shop. "Big news," the kid, Wang Dezhuang, typed. "Someone from our school has already reached the body refining stage." The chat exploded. "No way. Who is it?" The shop owner told me. "That's him in the photo." "I don't believe it. No one can level up that fast." "The owner is my uncle. He wouldn't lie. This guy reached body refining in 3 days. He's a god." Then, someone typed, "Wait, look at the back of his head. Doesn't that look like Yang Fan?" My heart skipped a beat. Yang Fan? The guy with no root? No way. Let's ask him. "At Yang Fan, is this you? Did you break through?" I watched the messages fly by, feeling a bit of cold sweat. I didn't want the attention yet. I quickly typed back. "Not me. I'm literally lying in bed sleeping. How could it be me?" Zhang Ting was the first to reply. I knew it. For a second, I thought someone actually important had shown up. What a waste of excitement. I tossed my phone aside and smirked. Let them talk. They had no idea who they were dealing with. The group chat continued to buzz with excitement. Everyone was trying to figure out who the mystery genius was. They didn't think anyone at our school, Mengshi High, was that capable. One guy tagged Wang Dezhuang, suggesting his uncle might have made a mistake. Our school uniforms looked a lot like the ones from the high school next door, after all. When the group realized it wasn't me, the hype died down. They went back to guessing the identities of other top-tier students. I closed the app and let out a sigh of relief. I was lucky the shop owner didn't get a shot of my face. If he had, I wouldn't be able to give those arrogant green tea girls a proper shock during the college entrance exams. The next morning, I skipped school again. My teacher had given me a few days off anyway, and I needed to use that time to push my cultivation even further. Before heading out of the city, I stopped at a general store. I bought a simple mask and a sturdy iron sword. The mask was to hide my identity. I couldn't risk another viral photo incident. As for the sword, now that I had mastered the Dugan 9 sword's technique, a proper blade was much more efficient than a meat cleaver. As I reached the city gates, I noticed a large red notice posted on the wall. I pushed through the crowd to read it. Apparently, things were getting dangerous outside. There had been a string of monster attacks recently. Starting tomorrow, only people with an official badge from the Cultivation Association would be allowed to leave the city. Ordinary citizens and uncertified cultivators would be barred for their own safety. "I guess I'll have to go get a badge tomorrow," I muttered to myself. I slipped out of the gates and headed back to the woods. It was time to grind. I spotted a mutated rabbit and moved like a shadow. My iron sword flashed in the sunlight. Asterisk ding. Killed a mutated rabbit. Points +3. Cultivation +128. Asterisk. Asterisk ding. Killed a mutated rabbit. Points +3. Cultivation +128. Asterisk ding. Killed a mutated mutant scorpion. Points +5. Cultivation +155. Asterisk. With the Dugan 9 swords and a real weapon, my efficiency was off the charts. It was 1 kill per strike. By noon, a powerful wave of spiritual energy surged through my body. I had broken through again. I checked my stats. I was now at the middle stage of body refining. Even with my 500% cultivation bonus from my void root, I could feel the progress slowing down. The requirements for each level were getting steeper. I could only imagine how hard it was for the students with crappy roots. I spent the afternoon on a killing spree. My proficiency with the Dugan 9 swords reached level 2, making my movements even more fluid and lethal. If I ran into another tier 1 beast like that Boar King, I knew I wouldn't be struggling this time. It would be an easy kill. By evening, I headed back to the city with a sack full of materials. I walked into the same shop as yesterday, but this time, I wasn't wearing my uniform and my face was hidden behind the mask. "Boss, I'm back to sell," I said. Wang Fuguwei, the owner, stared at the bulging sack in shock. Kid, did you rob a monster's nest? This is even more than yesterday. Just some low-level scraps, I said, dismissive. Tell me what it's worth. He didn't pry and got to work. 5,810 coins. Even though I had twice as much material as the day before, the total price was lower because I didn't have a high-value item like the Boar King's tusks. I took the cash and left. It wasn't dark yet, so I decided to hit the Cultivation Association immediately so I wouldn't waste any hunting time tomorrow. The association hall was nearly empty. An old man, Elder Tang, was dozing in a lounge chair behind the counter. He didn't even open his eyes when I walked up. He just pointed to some forms and told me to fill them out. His attitude was cold, but I didn't mind. I filled out my details and handed the paper back. Elder Tang glanced at the form and his eyes snapped open. You're a freshman from Mengshi High? Yes, I replied. Not bad, he muttered, standing up. Breaking through to the early stage of body refining just 3 days after awakening. You might actually have a shot at a top-tier university. He led me to a testing stone. Even though we had been tested at school, the association required their own verification before issuing a badge. I placed my hand on the cold stone. The pillar erupted in a blinding light. Elder Tang's jaw dropped. Name, Yang Fan. Root, Earth Grade. Realm, middle stage body refining. The old man nearly fell over. You reached the middle stage in 3 days? He stared at me like I was a ghost. He had seen geniuses before. Kids who reached the early stage in a few days, but the middle stage required 3 times the energy. It was physically impossible for a student to do it this fast. He rubbed his eyes, convinced he was hallucinating. I managed to break through this morning, I said modestly. It was okay, I guess. Elder Tang let out a sharp breath. He looked at the Earth Grade, reading on the stone, and swallowed hard. He knew the principal of my school, and the principal had claimed the best root in this year's class was only Immortal Grade. Senior? Did I pass? I asked, feeling a bit awkward under his intense gaze. Pass? You more than passed. His cold attitude vanished instantly, replaced by a frantic, beaming smile. Good lad. Excellent. Hang on, I'll get your badge ready right now. A few minutes later, I was holding a bronze badge with my name engraved on it. It was my official ID as a cultivator. By the time I stepped out of the building, the sun had set. I was admiring my new badge when I ran into a familiar face. It was Zhang Ting. My good mood vanished instantly. Oh look, she sneered, seeing me walk out of the hall. Coming to the association at night? Are you so desperate about having no root that you're trying to sneak in for a retest? I looked at her like she was an idiot. None of your business, you green tea bitch. Zhang Ting froze, her face turning a shade of red that matched her outfit. Yang Fan, you dare call me that? I'll make you regret this. I didn't even look back as I walked away. Back in the hall, Elder Tang was still staring at my form, his mind racing. Yang Fan, Mengshi High School, Grade 12, Class 7. Elder Tang looked down at the registration form and muttered the details to himself. What an interesting little fellow, he whispered, carefully recording my information into the system. Suddenly, his phone buzzed. It was a WeChat message from Jiang Daonan, the principal of Mengshi High School. Old Tang, let's grab drinks tonight. My treat, the message read. Elder Tang smirked and typed back. You old fox. You've been hiding things pretty deep, haven't you? The principal replied instantly. What are you talking about? What did I hide? Stop acting, Tang sent back. Your school has a little monster with an Earth Grade root. He broke through to the middle stage of the body refinement realm just 3 days after awakening. That's unheard of. Don't joke with me, Jiang Daonan replied. My school doesn't have any Earth Grade students this year, especially not one who could break through that fast. Are you sure you didn't make a mistake? Elder Tang frowned. You really don't know? I really don't. Who is it? Well, if you don't know, then I'm not telling you, Tang teased. Damn it, old Tang. Don't do this to me. Tell me now, or I'm going to lose it. Elder Tang chuckled but held firm. The Cultivation Association had strict privacy rules. He wasn't going to leak my identity that easily. Meanwhile, I dragged my exhausted body back home. Just like the day before, I took a quick shower, ate a simple meal, and headed straight to my bedroom to rest. Suddenly, my phone lit up. The class WeChat group was exploding. Our homeroom teacher, Zhang Dongliang, had tagged everyone. Announcement: All students must report to school tomorrow. We are conducting a second round of spirit root testing. The group went wild. A second test? What's going on? One student asked. We just did this 3 days ago. Did they miss someone? Even if they missed a few people, why make everyone go back? Something big must have happened. Teacher Zhang finally sent a follow-up message to explain. This is a direct order from the principal. Word is, a peerless genius has emerged from our school. A genius? Who? Is it me? Isn't the top student Li Fei? But he already awakened a immortal grade ice root. Why would he need to test again? I don't have all the details, Teacher Zhang replied. But the principal said this student has a top-tier earth grade root. Not only that, but this genius went to the association today to get their official badge. They've already reached the middle stage of body refinement. The chat froze for a second before the messages started flying at light speed. Middle stage? Already. I'm still struggling to even reach the early stage. How is this possible? A grade 12 student from our school is an earth grade monster? I'm going crazy. I stared at the screen, my heart skipping a beat. Damn that Elder Tang. Did the old man really have such a big mouth? I had just gotten home, and he'd already sold me out. Wait, I looked closer at the messages. It seemed he hadn't revealed my name yet. All right, stop speculating, Teacher Zhang added. Get some sleep. We'll find out who this genius is tomorrow. The next morning, I didn't go to school. If I showed up for a second test, I'd be exposed instantly. I wasn't interested in being the center of attention, and I certainly didn't care about vanity. My plan was simple: stay low-key until the college entrance exams. I wanted to give those green tea girls and the bullies a real shock when it actually mattered. I headed straight for the city gates to hunt. Hold it, kid, a guard said, blocking my path. City's under restricted access today. You can't leave without a cultivator badge from the association. I didn't say a word. I just pulled out my bronze badge. The guard stared at it, then at me. What? You're a high school senior, and you're already in the body refinement stage. I gave them a small smile and didn't bother explaining. They let me through, but I could hear them whispering behind my back. Which school is he from? Another monster? I think I saw him leave 2 days ago. 2 days ago? You sure? That would mean he reached the early stage just 1 day after awakening. I ignored them and headed for the woods. Asterisk ding. Killed a mutant rabbit. Points +3. Cultivation +128. Asterisk. Asterisk ding. Killed a mutant scorpion. Points +5. Cultivation +155. Asterisk. Killing these low-level beasts was becoming too easy. My proficiency with the Duga 9 swords was growing, and my movements were becoming fluid and deadly. The points were coming in, but the speed was too slow for my liking. I decided to push further into the small valley ahead to hunt Tier 1 monsters. As soon as I entered the valley, a massive, beetle-like creature lunged at me. I didn't flinch. I gripped my iron sword, my footsteps light as a dancer, and met it head-on. Asterisk clang. Clang. Asterisk. Tier 1 monsters were 10 times stronger than the mutants in the woods. This beetle had a shell-like armor. My sword struggled to pierce it. It took 10 minutes of intense fighting before I finally found a gap in its defense. Asterisk ding. Killed Tier 1 beetle. Points +12. Cultivation +888. Asterisk. I frowned. The rewards were higher, but the time it took to kill one wasn't efficient. I retreated back to the woods to bully more rabbits and chickens until noon, when a notification popped up. Asterisk Duga 9, swords level up. Earth grade, high. Proficiency, level 3, asterisk. With the upgrade, my sword strikes became even sharper. I headed back to the valley to test my new strength. Another beetle appeared. I charged. Clang. 5 minutes later, the beetle collapsed. My efficiency had tripled. Now, I could hunt these Tier 1 monsters one by one as long as I didn't get surrounded. Asterisk ding. Killed Tier 1 beetle. Points +12. Cultivation +888. Asterisk. Asterisk ding. Killed Tier 1 killer bee. Points +11. Cultivation +800. Asterisk. Asterisk ding. Killed Tier 1 poison lizard. Points +13. Asterisk. Cultivation +988. And the best part wasn't just the points. The materials from Tier 1 monsters were worth a lot more money. If I wanted my parents to live a better life, this was the way to do it. By sunset, My large burlap sack was overflowing. I looked at the pile of monster parts and sighed. The bag was too small. I needed to save up for a storage ring. Those things were expensive, but they were the only way to truly strike it rich. Storage rings were the dream, but they were incredibly expensive. Even a low-quality one cost at least 100,000 credits. I wasn't there yet, but I was getting close. "Boss, I'm back to sell more materials," I called out as I arrived at the shop. I dropped my burlap sack and opened it. When Wang Fuguei saw it was stuffed to the brim with Tier 1 monster parts, his eyes nearly popped out of his head. He looked at me like I was a ghost. "My God, kid, are you a monster?" he stammered. "Yesterday, it was just mutants, but today it's all Tier 1? How is this even possible?" I didn't feel like explaining my rapid growth. I just wanted to get paid and go home for a hot shower. "Just tell me how much it's worth," I said. He scrambled to do the math. A few minutes later, he handed over the total, 36,880 credits. My income for a single day had surpassed what I used to make in a week. At this rate, I'd have enough for a storage ring in 3 days. Once I had that, I wouldn't have to look like a fool hauling giant sacks through the city gates anymore. When I got home, I checked my phone. My class group chat was exploding with over 99 notifications. The results of the second school-wide talent test were out. "The principal must have made a mistake," one student wrote. "The results are the same as before. There's no Earth-grade genius here." "Exactly," another replied. "Even Li Fei, the best among us, just reached the early stage of body refinement. I think the principal is getting senile." I scrolled through the messages with a smirk. Let them talk. I closed the app and crashed onto my bed. Hunting Tier 1 monsters all day was exhausting, both mentally and physically. The next morning, I headed out with 2 burlap sacks. My cultivation was rising, and my sword techniques were becoming second nature. Killing Tier 1 monsters was starting to feel like butchering livestock. Asterisk ding. Killed Tier 1 beetle. Points plus 12. Cultivation plus 888. Ding. Killed Tier 1 snake. Points plus 11. Cultivation plus 820. Ding. Killed Tier 1 poison lizard. Points plus 13. Cultivation plus 988. 3 hours into the hunt, I stopped. I had reached 1,011 points. It was time for another gacha spin. My heart raced as the virtual wheel appeared and began to spin rapidly. Ding. Congratulations. You have drawn the Earth grade, Chaos Dao body. My eyes snapped open. The Chaos Dao body was the top of the 10 great saint physiques. The stats were insane. Cultivation speed increased by 200%, comprehension increased by 200%, breakthrough rate increased by 20%, and skill proficiency gain increased by 500%. I was stunned. Everything, my growth, my understanding, my skills, everything just got a massive multiplier. I started to suspect that this point system didn't even have trash rewards in the pool. I checked my status panel. Name, Lin Yuan. Realm, middle stage body refinement, 86.33%. Spirit root, void root. Physique, Chaos Dao body. Skill, Duga 9 swords, level 3. Weapon, iron sword. Points, 11. I still had a bloodline to awaken later, but for now, I was a powerhouse. I grabbed my iron sword and jumped back into the fray. With the Saint physique, my speed, power, and reflexes reached a new level. A fight that used to take 5 minutes now took 3. Asterisk ding. Killed Tier 1 king crab. Points plus 11. Cultivation plus 1508. Asterisk. Asterisk ding. Killed Tier 1 poison lizard. Points plus 12. Cultivation plus 1688. Asterisk. Asterisk ding. Killed Tier 1 fire rat. Points plus 12. Cultivation plus 1666. Asterisk. The Chaos Dao body was already paying off. The cultivation points from each kill had nearly doubled. As sunset approached, my 2 sacks were almost full. Suddenly, a piercing screech echoed through the valley. I looked up to see a black cat the size of a large dog lunging at me. Clang. I raised my iron sword just in time to block its claws. Sparks flew, and 5 deep gouges appeared on the blade. If that hit my face, my head would have exploded. It was a Tier 1 cat demon king. In the monster world, there are leaders. The boar king I met before and this cat demon king were the elites of Tier 1. The cat was pure speed and explosive power. It hissed, realizing I wasn't an easy kill, and lunged again. I dropped my bags and unleashed the Duga 9 swords. I wasn't the rookie I was 3 days ago. Between my middle stage cultivation and my new saint physique, I completely suppressed it. Realizing it was losing, the cat tried to bolt. Nowhere to run. I shouted. I flicked my wrist, my sword dancing in a blur of steel. I lunged forward, driving the blade straight through the cat's heart. Asterisk ding. Killed Tier 1, Cat Demon King. Points plus 23. Cultivation plus 3663. Asterisk. Crack. The iron sword finally gave up. It snapped in half, the blade falling to the grass. I sighed. It cost me over 1,000 credits and only lasted a few days. I definitely needed a better weapon. With the sun setting and my sword broken, I called it a day. I harvested the materials from the Cat Demon King and slung a massive sack over each shoulder. As I walked through the city gates, the guards stared at me in disbelief. That kid had 1 bag yesterday. Now he has 2. One whispered. Look at his sword, it snapped. He must have been fighting all day. But he's just a student, right? I ignored them and headed straight to the shop. Boss, I'm back, I said, dropping the heavy loads. Wang Fuguei ran out, rubbing his eyes. My lord, 2 bags? You're going to bankrupt me at this rate. Just give me the total, I said, leaning against the counter. I need to go buy a real weapon. To Wang Fuguei, I was a walking goldmine. Small roadside shops like his rarely saw this much high-grade material at once. Over the last few days, I had become his most consistent supplier. First, it was half a bag, then a full one. Now, I was dropping off 2 massive sacks of monster parts every night. Wang Fuguei's heart was racing. He looked like he was about to have a stroke from pure excitement. He was terrified of offending me, worried I might take my business elsewhere. Lord Lin Yuan, he stammered, frantically punching numbers into his calculator. The total comes to 78,910 credits. But since you're my best customer, let's call it an even 80,000. I watched the notification pop up on my phone as the transfer went through. My balance had finally crossed the 100,000 mark. I felt a surge of adrenaline. This was real money. I stood up to leave, but Wang Fuguei hurried around the counter. Wait, please. One more thing, he said, looking hopeful. My shop is running low on Tier 1 hunting dog materials. If you can get me some of those, I'll pay you top dollar. I promise you won't find a better price. Hunting dogs. I thought about it for a second. I'll see if I can find a few tomorrow. Before heading home, I stopped at a specialized weapon shop. My broken iron sword was useless now. I needed something that could handle my power. In this world, weapons were ranked from mortal and dharma tools all the way up to immortal artifacts. Each rank had low, medium, and high grades. I dropped 30,000 credits on a mid-grade dharma weapon, a black iron sword. It was a painful amount of money to spend, but I knew that the quality of a weapon affected how fast I could gain proficiency in my skills. It was an investment. The next morning, I checked the coordinates for the hunting dog territories and headed out with 2 empty sacks. Today was the day. If I played my cards right, I'd have enough by tonight to finally buy a storage ring. As I approached the outskirts of the valley, I passed a group of older cultivators. They watched me walk toward the heart of the dog territory and started snickering. Look at this rookie, one mocked. Another greedy kid going to his death. I didn't bother looking back. I had work to do. A low growl echoed from the tall grass. A Tier 1 hunting dog lunged at me, its eyes bloodshot. I didn't flinch. I flicked my wrist, and the black iron sword hummed. A single flash of cold light sliced through the air. The dog didn't even have time to bark before it hit the ground, dead. Asterisk ding. Killed Tier 1 hunting dog. Points plus 12. Cultivation plus 1,220. I kept moving. It was like cutting through butter. This 30,000 credit sword was worth every penny. I didn't need a second strike for anything. My movements were fluid, my steps light. I carved a path through the territory like I was taking a stroll in a park. Back at the edge of the woods, the cultivators who had mocked me were dead silent. Their faces had turned a sickly shade of purple. Holy crap, one whispered. Is that a hidden master? Look at that sword intent. Don't be so sure. Another grumbled, though his voice wavered. Hunting dogs are pack animals. If he runs into the queen, he's a dead man. They weren't wrong about the packs. As I pushed deeper into the valley, the lone scouts were replaced by groups of 5 or 6. The pressure started to build, but I could handle it. My Duga 9 swords might only be Earth grade, but with my high proficiency, the power was devastating. Asterisk ding. Killed Tier 1 Great Hunting Dog. Points plus 15. Cultivation plus 1620. Asterisk. The deeper I went, the bigger they got. These great dogs were twice the size of the ones on the outskirts. The rewards were better, but the manual labor was killing me. Every time I cleared a pack, I had to stop and harvest the materials. It was a massive waste of time. Suddenly, a chorus of high-pitched howls erupted from the brush. A dozen great hunting dogs charged at me from all sides. I gripped my sword tight. If I let them surround me, I'd be in trouble. I lunged forward, meeting them head-on. My blade became a blur of silver. I danced between their claws, my movements precise and lethal. One by one, they fell. I was wiping the blood off my blade, looking at my half-full sacks, when a bone-chilling howl ripped through the air. My blood ran cold. Emerging from the shadows was a beast the size of a tiger. Its fur was matted, and its eyes glowed with a cruel intelligence. The hunting dog queen. A Tier 2 monster. I froze for a split second. According to my research, the queen was supposed to stay in the deepest part of the valley. Why was she out here? Then I saw the massive guards flanking her, her elite royal servants. I realized my mistake. The howls from the pack I just killed hadn't been a scare tactic. They were a distress signal. Damn it, I hissed. I knew my limits. A Tier 2 beast was 5 times stronger than a Tier 1. I grabbed my bags and bolted. The queen let out another roar, and her elite guards blurred toward me. I spun around, parrying a strike. Clang! The sound was like hammer on anvil. These guards had fur like steel needles. My black iron sword barely left a scratch, and the impact vibrated all the way up my arm, nearly numbing my hand. I felt a surge of relief that I'd bought this heavy sword last night. If I were still using that cheap iron blade, it would have shattered instantly. I didn't stay to fight. I turned and ran, the heavy sacks thumping against my back as the monsters gave chase. If I had been using a light sword, that first wave of royal servants would have ended me. I roared, pushing the Duga 9 swords to their absolute limit. My blade left afterimages in the air. Even with several guards lunging at once, they couldn't get within an inch of me. But the cost was high. My stamina was draining at an alarming rate. If it wasn't for my Chaos Dao body and its insane endurance, I would have collapsed from exhaustion minutes ago. The hunting dog queen saw her guards failing and decided to end it herself. She howled and lunged with terrifying speed. Clang! The impact was deafening. Sparks flew from my black iron sword as the force sent me reeling back several steps. My face went pale. This Tier 2 beast was a nightmare. I slammed my sword into a dog trying to sneak up behind me and bolted. She was too fast. Every time I gained ground, she cut me off, snapping at my heels. I was trapped. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I spotted a shallow cave in the cliffside. It wasn't deep, but it was perfect. I threw one of my heavy sacks at the queen's face to distract her and dove inside. Now, they couldn't surround me. I only had to face one direction. The queen snarled, her expression almost human in its rage. I gripped my sword with both hands and swung with everything I had. Clang! I blocked her pounce, but my arms went completely numb. The sword nearly flew out of my hands. The queen wasn't unscathed either. A deep red gash opened on her chest, and she hissed in pain. She was smart, too smart. She realized I was a cornered rat with a sharp bite, and she was afraid to die. Instead of risking her own life, she backed off and barked orders. She wanted her servants to wear me down through sheer attrition. I finally got a moment to breathe. If she had kept fighting, I wouldn't have lasted 5 rounds. But with only one dog able to fit into the cave entrance at a time, I had a chance. The dogs were relentless. They took turns, cycling out whenever they got tired so a fresh one could take its place. It was a dirty tactic. A whole day passed. My body felt like lead. Even with my special constitution, I was reaching my breaking point. But I refused to die. I hadn't even started to live my best life in this new world yet. I wasn't going out like this. When night fell, the queen tried one last desperate strike. I met her with a crazed roar and a flurry of wild slashes, hacking at anything that moved. She retreated, startled by my ferocity. I was starving. My stomach was screaming. I had no food, so I hacked off chunks of a dead dog I'd killed earlier and forced them down raw. It tasted foul. I nearly gagged, but I needed the fuel to survive. I spent the night in a daze, fueled by pure spite. When the sun rose, I dragged my broken body up for one more round. Suddenly, I felt a surge of clarity. My Duga 9 sword's technique reached the 4th level of mastery. A servant lunged. I didn't flinch. My heavy sword suddenly felt as light as a feather. I moved with a fluid grace, my blade dancing through the air. One stab, one kill. The dog's head was pierced before it could even whimper. The queen was stunned. She roared, sending every remaining guard at me at once. She even circled behind me to block the cave entrance, making sure I couldn't hide again. I just smiled. Today is the day you die, beast. I was a blur of steel. I felt like a god of war. Within minutes, the servants were all dead, their bodies piling up at my feet. I turned my gaze to the queen. I charged. We clashed again and again, the vibrations tearing the skin on my palms. I ripped strips of cloth from my shirt, tied my hands to the hilt so I wouldn't lose my grip, and kept swinging. Finally, I found the opening. I plunged the black iron sword straight through her heart. A notification flashed in my mind. I had gained over 7,000 experience points. I collapsed next to her carcass, coughing up blood. My lungs burned, but I started to laugh. That was the biggest rush of my life. Outside the valley, a group of cultivators was gossiping. They were sure I was dog food by now. Then, the brush cleared. I emerged from the shadows, covered in gore, my clothes in tatters. I was carrying 2 massive sacks of loot, and my heavy sword was still dripping blood, leaving a dark trail on the dirt. The cultivators went silent. Their eyes nearly popped out of their heads. I didn't say a word. I just walked past them toward the city gates, my eyes heavy with exhaustion. Once I was gone, they scrambled into the valley to see for themselves. They found a graveyard of Tier 1 and Tier 2 monsters. I didn't head home. I went straight to the material shop. It was time to see how much this nightmare was worth. Wang Fuguei froze the moment he saw me. I was lugging 2 massive sacks of monster materials, and he stood there for 5 full minutes without blinking. We had a deal 2 nights ago, but I was only supposed to bring back a few stray hounds. Now, after being gone for a day and a night, I had returned with a mountain of loot. He looked at me like I had single-handedly wiped out the entire pack. He started sorting through the hall. When he found the teeth and claws of the queen and her elites, his hands began to shake. He looked at me, his eyes wide with awe. I wasn't just a customer anymore. I was his savior. He treated me with more respect than his own father. After totaling it all up, he handed over 150,000 spirit coins. I was exhausted. My body felt like lead, and all I wanted was my bed. But as I turned to leave, a mountain of a man came charging toward me from the distance. Idle, wait. It was Wang Dazhuang. I nearly jumped out of my skin. Wang Dazhuang. I blurted out. My heart skipped a beat. I was wearing a mask. I wasn't supposed to know his name. I felt like an idiot. If I wasn't careful, he'd realize I was his classmate. Idle, you know me? Dazhuang's tiny eyes bulged out of his chubby face. His cheeks quivered with excitement. I forced myself to stay calm. Not really, I muttered, trying to play it off. I think I saw you once before. Once before. Dazhuang pressed, stepping closer. Are you really a senior from Mengshi High School? He looked like he wanted to rip my mask off just to confirm his suspicions. I am, I said shortly. But I have to go. Goodbye. I didn't wait for a response. The more I talked, the more likely I was to slip up. I bolted. I could hear him yelling behind me about wanting an autograph, but I didn't look back. I ran all the way home, my heart hammering against my ribs. That was too close. Why was that fat guy even there? Then I remembered something from the class group chat. The shop owner, Wang Fuguei, was his uncle. I stripped off my blood-stained clothes and jumped into the shower. I ate like a starving animal. I hadn't had a real meal in over 24 hours, and the taste of raw monster meat was still haunting my tongue. Nothing beat my mom's cooking. After eating my fill, I collapsed onto my bed. I checked my phone, and the class group chat was exploding. Wang Dazhuang had tagged everyone. Guys, I saw the idol this morning. What idol? Someone replied. Who cares about celebrities? Not a celebrity. Dajwang typed furiously. It's the genius from our school. The Earth grade spirit root. He admitted it. He came to my uncle's shop with 2 huge sacks of materials. He even killed a Tier 2 queen. It was insane. The chat went wild. People were calling him a liar, saying a body refinement student couldn't possibly kill a Tier 2 beast. Even our homeroom teacher, Zhang Dongliang, popped up to ask for details. I stared at the screen, wanting to strangle that loudmouth. Luckily, he hadn't recognized me, or the whole school would know the top student was moonlighting as a monster hunter. I turned off the phone and closed my eyes. I was spent. Thinking back to the valley, I realized how close I had come to dying. I made a mental note. No more reckless stunts. Meanwhile, back at Mengshi High, the atmosphere was tense. Principal Zhang Daonan and the school board were huddled in a meeting room, looking exhausted. They had spent days trying to find this mysterious genius. Principal, could Elder Tang be wrong? One official asked. We retested everyone. The best we found was Li Fei. Tang doesn't joke about these things, Zhang Daonan sighed, rubbing his balding head. I've lost half my hair trying to figure this out. I'm going to get the old man drunk tonight and force the truth out of him. Suddenly, the door swung open. Zhang Dongliang ran in, breathless. Principal, one of my students, Dajwang, saw him. The genius is definitely a senior at our school. Every leader in the room stood up at once. By evening, I finally woke up. I checked my stats immediately. Name, Lin Yuan. Realm, late-stage body refinement, 11.22%. Spirit root, Earth grade. Technique, Duga 9 swords, Earth grade high, level 4. Weapon, black iron sword. Points, 985. I hadn't been to school in a week, but my progress was solid. At this rate, I might actually hit the God transformation stage by the time the college entrance exams rolled around. A high schooler at that level? The world wouldn't know what hit it. I headed out to get some food and then made my way to the market. Carrying 2 bloody sacks around was too conspicuous. I needed a storage ring. They were expensive, but they were worth it for the stealth and convenience. I found a basic bronze storage ring. The price tag? 150,000 spirit coins. I felt a physical pain in my chest. There went my entire profit from the hunt. My whole day of risking my life had basically just paid for a piece of jewelry. Still, I bought it. With this, I could focus on grinding my level to the peak of body refinement within 3 days. The next day, I went back to the outskirts. With my current strength, Tier 1 monsters were like cutting vegetables. Ding. Killed Tier 1 hound. Plus 1,220 EXP. Ding. Killed Tier 1 poison lizard. Plus 1,620 EXP. Ding. Killed Tier 1 black snake. Plus 1,420 EXP. I avoided the hound territory this time. I had already thinned them out, and I wasn't in the mood to gamble with another Tier 2 beast. By the end of the day, my new storage ring was packed with materials. It wasn't as valuable as the Queen's loot, but it was still worth at least 100,000 coins. I approached the material shop, feeling good. Then I saw them. Principal Zhang and my teacher, Zhang Dongliang, were standing right by the entrance. My heart nearly stopped. I turned on my heel and bolted down an alley. It was all Dajwang's fault. His big mouth had brought the school authorities straight to my doorstep. Thank God I had the storage ring now. If I had been carrying those sacks, they would have caught me red-handed. I waited until late at night to return. I figured they had to be gone by then. I crept up to the shop, peeking around corners like a thief. The coast looked clear. I stepped inside. Boss, I've got materials to sell, I said, letting out a breath of relief. But before I could finish, I froze. Up on the second-floor balcony, 2 figures were looking down at me, wearing very wide, very knowing smiles. It was the principal and my teacher. They hadn't left at all. There they were. Principal Zhang Daonan and my class teacher, Zhang Dongliang. Who else could it have been? Kid, since you're a student at our Mengshi High School, why are you being so secretive? Why run the moment you see me? Principal Zhang laughed, scolding me playfully as he walked down from the balcony. He looked genuinely excited. To find me, the hidden genius, he hadn't slept well for days. He'd practically rubbed himself bald from the stress. Tonight, he finally caught me red-handed. Principal, I just don't like being high profile. I only want to focus on my cultivation, I said with a cramped, awkward smile. I reached up and pulled off my mask. Lin Yuan? It's you. Zhang Dongliang's eyes nearly popped out of his head. He let out a strangled cry of shock. It finally clicked for him. During the second round of testing, every student in his class had shown up except for me, the former top scholar. At the time, he hadn't thought much of it. He certainly never imagined the super monster the school was hunting for was the kid he'd given a hall pass to. Teacher, it's me, I said, rubbing the back of my neck. Principal Jiang turned his head, staring suspiciously at Zhang Dongliang. He had ordered a mandatory retest of every senior, yet they hadn't found the genius. Now it turned out the kid was right under Zhang's nose in class 4. Jiang clearly suspected they had conspired to hide me. Principal, don't look at me like that. I really didn't know. I'm innocent. Zhang Dongliang stammered, trying to clear his name. Lin Yuan hadn't awakened his spirit root before. I was afraid he was under too much pressure, so I gave him a few days off. That's right, Principal. My spirit root awakened late, I added, backing up my teacher's story. Jiang down and didn't dwell on the timing. He looked me up and down, his curiosity burning. Kid, your aura is incredibly stable. What stage are you at now? Barely reached the late stage of body refinement, I answered honestly. Barely late stage, huh? Good. Wait, what did you say? Principal Jiang froze mid-sentence. He practically jumped 3 feet in the air. It's only been a week. You're already at the late stage of body refinement. Beside him, Zhang Dongliang's jaw hit the floor. While other students were still struggling to reach the early stage, I had reached the late stage in the blink of an eye. Was I riding a rocket to the top? Wait a minute, old Kai, the shop owner, chimed in, looking confused. The materials wealth god sold me yesterday included the teeth and claws of a Tier 2 hound queen. Everything else was Tier 1 stuff. How can he only be at the late stage of body refinement? What? Tier 2 materials. Jiang and Zhang were already reeling, but this sent them over the edge. Normally, a Tier 2 monster required a foundation establishment cultivator. Only a handful of elite geniuses could even hope to fight one at the chi refinement stage by using powerful martial arts. But I was still in the body refinement stage. I was jumping 2 entire realms to kill Tier 2 beasts. It felt like a cosmic joke. They stared at me like I was a literal monster. Are Tier 2 beasts that strong? They felt pretty average to me, I said, looking innocent. The 3 of them stared at me in silence. They felt like I was flexing on them, but when I emptied my storage ring and 3 massive sacks of Tier 1 materials hit the floor, they collectively lost it. Other cultivators went out to hunt for materials. I looked like I was going to a warehouse to restock a store. Kid, come back to school tomorrow, Principal Jiang said, sighing with emotion after the shock wore off. You and that girl Li Fei are the brightest stars of our academy. I'll pour every resource we have into training you. I want you to shock the world during the college entrance exams. He had felt sorry for me before, thinking the school's top student had failed to awaken. Now, pity was the last thing I needed. I had an Earth-grade spirit root and was slaying Tier 2 beasts while my peers were still sweating over the basics. I wasn't just a genius. I was a freak of nature. Principal, I don't want to go back to school yet, I said, shaking my head. But don't worry. I'll be there on time for the exams. Why? Jiang asked, puzzled. My situation is unique. Being in school will actually slow down my progress. I didn't explain further. I couldn't exactly tell them I had a system that gave me experience points for killing monsters. Fine, Jiang down and conceded. He didn't push it. If you run into trouble, come find me or your teacher. Also, I'll keep your Earth grade status a secret for now. I want to give those old guys from the other schools a little surprise during the exams. Ha ha ha. He started laughing like a villain, clearly imagining the looks on his rivals' faces when I showed up. After the principal and my teacher left, I finished the sale and went home to sleep. Over the next week, my cultivation soared. I hit the peak of body refinement. A system notification chimed in my head. Ding. Realm reached body refinement peak. Experience gain paused. Break through to chi refinement to continue. Breakthrough rate, 100%. Proceed. Yes, I thought without hesitation. Ding. Breakthrough successful. Instantly, a surge of pure spiritual energy flowed through my meridians like a rushing stream. I gripped my black iron sword and gave it a slight flick. A faint, sharp blade of energy, sword chi, flickered on the edge. In the body refinement stage, you rely on brute force. But in chi refinement, you can channel internal energy into your weapons. I headed straight for the Tier 2 monster zone. A two-headed turtle spotted me and charged, hissing with rage. Perfect, I muttered. Let's see how much stronger I am now. I didn't retreat. I stepped forward using my 7-star footwork, the heavy sword humming in my hand. With the sword chi active, the blade cut through the turtle's reinforced shell like it was wet paper. I killed it in a single exchange. Ding. Killed Tier 2 two-headed turtle. Plus 36 points. Plus 5,685 EXP. I stopped after the kill. I had 8,561 points saved up. I could have rolled the gacha at 5,000, but I had waited until I hit chi refinement, hoping for better rewards. Spin the wheel, I commanded. The virtual wheel spun at a blurring speed before slowing down to a halt. Ding. Congratulations. You have drawn Ancient Earth Bloodline. Next draw requires 10,000 points. My heart raced as I checked the stats. The name sounded incredibly high-end. Ancient Earth Bloodline, 1% purity. EXP gain plus 10%. Comprehension plus 10. Breakthrough rate plus 1%. Weapon proficiency plus 10%. Purity can be increased with points. 1,000 points equals 1% purity. Holy crap. I could actually use points to upgrade my own bloodline. 1,000 points for a single percent of purity seemed like a steep price. However, it only proved how powerful this Ancient Earth bloodline really was. Even though the system description didn't list every detail, I felt a massive surge in power the moment I awakened it. Just like when I obtained the Chaos Dao body, my explosive strength, speed, reflexes, and endurance all reached a new level. The sun was starting to set. I decided to call it a day and headed back to the city instead of hunting more monsters. On the walk back, I pulled up my status panel to check my progress. Name, Lin Yuan. Realm, Chi Refinement, Early Stage, 0.01%. Spirit Root, Empyrean Spirit Root. Bloodline, Ancient Earth Bloodline, 1% Purity. Constitution, Chaos Dao Body. Technique, Dugu 9 Swords, Earth Grade High, Level 6. Weapon, Black Iron Sword. Points, 3,561. I had over 3,000 points. I could technically upgrade my bloodline purity right now, but with points being so hard to come by in the early stages, wasting them for a 3% increase didn't feel right. I decided to save them for later. After selling my materials and taking a hot shower at home, I checked my class group chat. It was buzzing. Family, I did it. I finally broke through to the early stage of body refinement. 2 weeks to get here. Who else can match that? One classmate bragged. You just broke through tonight? What are you so proud of? I hit body refinement 2 days ago, another replied. Wait, Goddess Zhang Ting, what's your breakthrough rate? How are you so fast? My breakthrough rate for the early stage was 33%, Zhang Ting replied. I failed the first time, but the second try was a success. I guess I got lucky. The chat erupted. A 33% success rate was incredibly high for a grade 6 spirit root. I stared at my phone, genuinely confused. I couldn't help but chime in. Is 33% really that high? I typed. Isn't the breakthrough rate supposed to be 100%? I wasn't trying to be a jerk. When I broke through, the system never even mentioned a success rate. Even today, moving from body refinement to chi refinement was a guaranteed 100% success. I honestly thought everyone was the same. The group chat went dead silent. Did I say something wrong? I asked. Wang Dazhuang tagged me immediately. Lin Yuan, major breakthroughs have success rates. The higher the realm, the lower the chance. Over 30% is amazing. Everyone, give him a break. It's normal for someone without a spirit root to not understand how breakthroughs work. Zhang Ting followed up with a sarcastic sneer. Humph. No spirit root, no clue. I felt a cold smile touch my lips. No spirit root? You're so sure about that? Oh, did you actually awaken one? She shot back. Right? I saw you sneaking off to the Cultivation Association the other night. I guess you just couldn't accept being a loser and went for a second test. Suddenly, our teacher, Zhang Dongliang, tagged everyone. Stop arguing. I can vouch for him. Lin Yuan has awakened a spirit root. The chat exploded again. Everyone was shocked. If I had a spirit root, why hadn't I been to school in 2 weeks? Probably because it's a trash-grade root, Zhang Ting mocked. He's likely too ashamed to show his face. I didn't feel like dealing with her nonsense. I typed a quick insult back and closed the app. I heard she started throwing a tantrum, crying to the teacher to kick me out of the group. But to everyone's surprise, Zhang Dongliang snapped at her instead, telling her to stop being so toxic or he'd kick her out. It seemed the teacher knew more than he was letting on. The next morning, I headed out to hunt, but as soon as I opened my door, I jumped. Li Fei was standing there, her eyes red and puffy. Xiao Yuan, why haven't you come back to school? Her voice trembled. She looked heartbroken. Fei, I've just been busy pushing for a breakthrough, I explained awkwardly. Pushing for a breakthrough? You don't even have a spirit root, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. She thought I was lying to cover up my depression. She thought I was losing my mind. I couldn't stand seeing her like this. Come on, I want to show you something. Where are we going? You'll see. I grabbed her hand and led her out of the city toward a small valley where Tier 1 monsters roamed. Xiao Yuan, why are we here? She cried out, terrified. There are monsters everywhere. What if we run into one? Just then, a Tier 1 hunting dog emerged from the brush, growling. Li Fei's face went pale. Even though she was shaking with fear, she stepped in front of me. Run, Xiao Yuan. I'll protect you. My heart warmed. I reached into my storage space, and the black iron sword flew into my hand. With one swift motion, a surge of sword chi slashed through the air. The monster didn't even have time to yelp before it was cut down. Li Fei stood frozen, her eyes wide as saucers. Do you believe me now? I asked, sheathing the heavy blade effortlessly. She stared at me, the sunlight catching my face. I could tell she was overwhelmed by the aura I was giving off. I reached out and ruffled her hair. What's with that look? Did I turn too handsome for you? You're already in the chi refinement stage? She stammered. She looked at the dead monster, then back at me, as if she were in a dream. Is that dog a fake? Did you hire an actor? I just broke through. I laughed. Suddenly, Li Fei lunged at me, burying her face in my chest and sobbing loudly. You big liar. You scare me so much. It took me forever to calm her down. Once the tears stopped, I spent the afternoon hunting while she watched. I could see the awe in her eyes as I used the Dugun 9 swords. Her own sword techniques were good, but compared to an Earth-grade high technique, they were nothing. I felt a sense of peace. My secret was out to the one person who mattered most, and now, it was time to get my official Rank 2 badge from the Cultivation Association. Look out, that's a Tier 2 beast. Li Fei's scream cut through the air. She was pointing at a creature larger than a grown man, its muscles rippling with lethal power. But before her warning could even finish, I moved. I gripped the black iron sword, the weight familiar and comforting in my hand. With a single, fluid strike, I cut the beast down. A Tier 2 monster, dead in an instant. Li Fei stood there, completely stunned. Her small hand covered her mouth, her wide, watery eyes looking like they might actually fall out of her head. It took her a long time to snap back to reality. I could see the pride in her eyes, but behind it, there was a flicker of sadness. I knew what she was thinking. Back at Mengshi Middle School, she was the golden girl, the genius everyone looked up to. Now, I had left her in the dust. I could see the determination hardening in her gaze. She didn't want to be a burden. She wanted to catch up. Fair, I said as we headed back toward the city as the sun began to set. Once I master the Dugan 9 swords to great perfection, I'll teach the technique to you. Her eyes went wide again, full of excitement. Really, she had seen me using it all day. To her, my movements looked like a forest spirit, elegant, swift, and deadly. It was 100 times stronger than any martial art she had ever practiced. I promise, I nodded, smiling. Give me a few days. By the end of the month, I'll have it mastered. Then it's yours. In this world, you can only teach a martial art to others once you've reached the level of great perfection yourself. I plan to get there fast. Once we reached the city, I headed to the materials shop to sell the day's loot. I was so focused on business that I forgot one crucial thing. Holy crap, Brother Fan, you're actually with Goddess Fair. I froze. It was Wang Dazhuang. The fat guy was staring at us with his tiny eyes wide open, looking like he'd seen a ghost. My heart sank. I'd been so distracted that I forgot to put on my mask. I was caught. I'm so jealous, the fat man rambled, his brain clearly not firing on all cylinders. You just awakened your spirit root, and you've already got the school beauty helping you level up? Man, I'd be happy just getting into a junior college. You guys really look like a power couple. Li Fei's face turned bright red. She held my hand tighter, looking shyly at the floor. I wanted to laugh. She knew the truth. I was at the chi refinement stage while she was still in the middle of body refinement. If anyone was doing the carrying, it was me. Yeah. Anyway, we've got things to do. See ya. I mumbled, dragging Li Fei away before the fat guy could start asking real questions. Wait, something feels weird. I heard him mutter behind us. Oh right, I forgot to treat myself to a snack tonight. Later that evening, after a nice dinner together, we headed home. As soon as I opened my phone, my notifications were exploding. Wang Dazhuang was tagging everyone in our class group chat. Big news, everyone, the fat guy typed. I just saw Brother Fan and Li Fei holding hands at the bookstore. No wonder he hasn't been at school for 2 weeks. He's been busy romancing the school beauty. It looks like she's been taking him out to the wilderness to help him level up. He's definitely scored. I stared at the screen, speechless. This guy's imagination was something else. The chat went wild with envy. I tried to do damage control. Don't listen to him. We're just friends. Sure, just friends who hold hands, someone shot back. My heart is broken. I'll never love again. Then, Zhang Ting chimed in with her usual venom. Typical. A trash spirit root needs a girl to carry him through body refinement. I'll be reaching the middle stage of body refinement in a week on my own. I watched the lick spittles in the chat start praising her. It made me want to gag. I shut the phone off. Just wait, you fake girl, I thought. When the college entrance exams come, I'm going to show the whole city who the real trash is. I started scrolling through the Cultivation Association's official forum instead. One post caught my eye. A mission to hunt an ogre, a tier 2 beast. The reward was a chi refinement pill. The pill was useless to me since I'd already broken through, but for Fair, it would be a treasure. The only problem was that you needed a level 2 bronze badge to accept the mission. I decided to head to the association first thing in the morning to rank up. The next day, I ran into Elder Tang again. Kid, your aura is much stronger than a few days ago, he noted, looking up from his chair. What brings you here so early? Senior, I've reached the chi refinement stage, I said plainly. I'm here for my level 2 badge. Elder Tang literally jumped out of his chair. He stared at me like I was a monster. You said what? Chi refinement. Can we just do the test? I urged. I have plans. He took a deep breath, his heart probably doing 250 beats per minute. He didn't even make me fill out the forms. He just dragged me to the testing stone. The stone glowed with a blinding light, far brighter than last time. The results appeared. Name, Lin Yuan. Spirit root, Earth Great. Realm, Early Chi Refinement. Bloodline, Ancient Earth. Constitution, Chaotic Tao Body. Elder Tang's heart must have skipped a beat. Actually, it stopped. His eyes rolled back, and he collapsed onto the floor, fainted cold. Senior, someone help. He's down, I shouted, reaching for my phone to call an ambulance. I'm fine. He sputtered, suddenly jerking back to life. He looked at me with pure terror. Are you a demon, boy? Senior, you're too old to be calling people names. I grumbled, though I let it slide. His heart clearly wasn't in the best shape. With my new level 2 badge in hand, I accepted the ogre mission and rushed to the city gates to meet Li Fei. Sorry I'm late, Fair. Got held out. I panted. It's okay, she said softly. I just got here. Let's go then, I said, heading for the exit. But she didn't move. Actually, Xiao Yuan, I'm not going with you today. I stopped, confused. Why not? She looked at the ground, her voice small. Your realm is so much higher than mine. I don't want to slow you down anymore. What are you talking about? I started to protest, but she shook her head stubbornly. She reached into her bag and pulled out a book. Here, this martial art. I want you to have it. I looked at the cover and froze. I couldn't believe what she was giving me. I looked down at the book in my hands. It was a movement technique called Sonic Step, and my heart nearly stopped when I saw the rank. Earth grade low. Fair, This is way too valuable, I said, trying to hand it back. I can't take this. In our world, martial arts are ranked from mortal, yellow, and profound, all the way up to earth and heaven grades. Each grade is further split into low, mid, and high tiers. My Duga 9 swords was only at the profound high tier, and here she was, handing me an earth grade technique. These things are legendary. You can't even buy them with money. Brother Xiao Yuan, she said softly, her eyes locked onto mine. In my heart, nothing is more important than you. Besides, this technique is too hard for me. I've tried to learn it for so long and just couldn't get it. But you're different. I know that in your hands, it will show its true power. She was a cute girl, but she was stubborn. She forced the book into my grip, her small hands trembling slightly. Thank you, Feier, I whispered. I was genuinely moved. Go on, get out of the city, she said, giving me a small, determined nod. I'm going to go work hard and level up too. Let's both do our best so we can get into a great college. She gave me a quick, shy hug, her face turning bright red, and then she turned and ran off before I could say another word. I stood there for a moment, sighing and wearing a bitter smile. She was just too innocent. I turned my attention to the book. Sonic Step. When activated, it created a sonic boom. Each step increased the user's strength and explosive power by 10%, scaling with proficiency. It was a pure movement-type technique. Maybe my comprehension stats were just off the charts, but after skimming it for a few seconds, I felt a click in my mind. The book dissolved into a burst of white light and vanished from my hands. I checked my system interface, and there it was, Sonic Step, Level 1. Was it really that hard to learn? I muttered to myself, wondering if Feier had been exaggerating just to make me feel better. 20 minutes later, I arrived at the ogre territory. Since this was an official mission from the Cultivators Association, the place was crawling with people. Whoa, look at that. A level 2 bronze badge, someone shouted. Is that kid serious? He's barely at the chi refinement stage, and he's wandering into Tier 2 territory. Hey kid, the Valley for Weaklings is back that way. A group of cultivators started jeering and laughing at me. I didn't give them the time of day. I ignored the insults, pulled my black iron heavy sword from my storage ring, and marched straight into the heart of the ogre lands. A massive ogre spotted me and let out a bone-chilling roar, charging with surprising speed. The cultivators nearby stopped to watch, wearing smug grins. They weren't going to help. They wanted to see the rookie get crushed. I didn't blink. I flicked my wrist, and the heavy sword blurred. 2 strikes. That was all it took. The ogre's massive body slumped to the ground, dead before it even knew it had been hit. The laughter stopped instantly. He killed a Tier 2 ogre in 2 hits. How is that possible? He looks like a total newbie. Suddenly, the tone changed. A few girls who thought they were pretty started posing and batting their eyelashes. Hey handsome, that sword work was amazing. Want to team up with us? I didn't even look back. I shouldered my heavy sword and kept walking. PSH, look at him acting all high and mighty. One of them spat, her face twisting in anger when I ignored her. Once I was out of their sight, I started practicing Sonic Step. Like any martial art, you need repetition to build proficiency. I took a step, and the ground beneath me groaned with a dull thud. I took another, and small stones nearby shattered into dust. An ogre wandered into my path. I lunged. I was moving so fast the creature didn't even have time to growl before my blade ended it. Another one-shot kill. I stopped shocked. This earth-grade technique was insane. Even at the lowest proficiency, I could only manage 3 consecutive steps, but those 3 steps gave me a 30% boost in raw power and speed. If I could master 10 steps, I felt like I could take down a Tier 3 beast without breaking a sweat. I slowed down my pace, focusing entirely on the rhythm. Boom, boom. The sonic pops echoed through the trees. Each step launched me several meters forward. By the 3rd step, I was a blur, covering 10 meters in an instant. This explosive speed made me feel invincible in this territory. I soon encountered an ogre leader, larger and meaner than the rest. I just smirked. I triggered Sonic Step, swung the black iron sword, and carved through it in 2 moves. The system pinged in my head. Asterisk killed Tier 2 ogre leader. Points plus 33. Cultivation plus 7,800. Asterisk. I harvested the materials and pushed deeper into the valley. As evening approached, I reached the very center of the territory. A deafening roar shook the leaves off the trees. I looked up to see a 3-meter-tall cyclops. This was it. The ogre heart I needed for Feyer's pills had to be inside that thing. I was just about to move in for the kill when a sharp whistle cut through the air. A bolt of sword chi dropped from the sky, slamming into the cyclops. I froze and turned my head. Emerging from the shadows was a woman in white. She was stunning. Fair skin, bright eyes. She looked like a goddess who had descended to earth. But her expression was cold, haughty, and distant. "Hey," I said, narrowing my eyes. "There's an order to these things. I found it first." She didn't even look at me. She flicked her slender longsword and charged. Her movements were fluid and graceful, her blade flashing like a silver snake, striking at vital points with terrifying precision. I was impressed. She was a true master of the sword. But I didn't care how pretty she was. I wasn't giving up that ogre heart. I needed it for Feyer. Boom, boom. I kicked off with sonic step, my heavy sword leading the way. The ground trembled under my weight. My sword was as heavy as a coffin lid, but in my hands, it moved with a mind of its own. For the first time, the cold woman's eyes showed a flicker of emotion. She was a sword expert herself. She could tell my technique was top tier. Our styles were opposites. Hers was agile and deadly, like a hidden viper, while mine was all about overwhelming power and explosive force. She didn't back down. She sped up, her thin blade dancing faster, clearly trying to compete with me to see who could land the killing blow. The poor Cyclops was caught in the middle. Usually, a beast like this was the king of the Tier 2 monsters, strong enough to even challenge a Tier 3. But against the two of us, it didn't stand a chance. The Cyclops was trapped between my heavy sword and the woman's silver blade. We were relentless. In an instant, its body was covered in deep gashes, and its breathing became ragged. It was on the verge of collapse. Then, it let out a bone-chilling roar. The air around the beast began to boil. Its muscles swelled, and its skin turned a dark, rocky gray. It was entering a berserk state, a desperate mutation triggered by the fear of death. I didn't hesitate. I gripped my black iron-heavy sword and swung faster. Sparks flew as my blade hit its hide. My sword energy, which usually sliced through anything, couldn't even leave a scratch on its new, stone-like skin. Across from me, the woman's thin sword was having the same problem. The tables had turned. We were in trouble. The Cyclops, eyes glowing blood red, lunged at us with terrifying speed. We shifted from offense to defense, barely holding our ground. To make matters worse, I heard the rustling of grass. More ogres were rushing toward the clearing. We were about to be swarmed. Suddenly, a surge of heat flowed through my legs. My proficiency with sonic step had leveled up. In that moment, the power and explosive force I could draw from the technique skyrocketed. I stomped the ground 5 times in rapid succession, each step cracking the earth. I swung the heavy sword with everything I had. The impact was massive. I actually managed to knock the berserk Cyclops back 5 full steps. The woman's eyes widened in genuine shock. I stood there, gasping for air, the skin on my palms cracked and bleeding from the recoil. The power was incredible, but those 5 steps had drained almost every drop of spiritual energy in my body. I couldn't do it again. The Cyclops was furious. It roared and charged back at me. I tried to dodge, but my legs felt like lead. Just as it was about to crush me, the white-clad woman flashed forward. She blocked the blow, her slender sword vibrating from the force. "Take this," she said, her voice cold as ice. She flicked her wrist, and a small white jade bottle flew toward me. I caught it instinctively. Inside were pills to recover spiritual energy. "Thanks," I shouted. She didn't even look at me. Talk about a cold shoulder. I felt a bit awkward, but there was no time for pride. I popped a few pills into my mouth. They dissolved instantly, sending a wave of pure energy through my veins. With my strength returning, I saw her struggling against the beast alone. I gripped my sword and charged back in. Boom. The sound of our clash echoed through the valley. I fought like a god of war, my heavy sword pushing the Cyclops back further with every strike. I didn't give it a second to breathe, layering my sonic step with the Duga 9 swords. While I focused on the boss, The woman pivoted to handle the smaller ogres swarming the perimeter. 20 minutes later, after a brutal grind, we finally brought it down. With one last, pathetic roar, the massive body of the Cyclops crashed to the dirt. I collapsed, chest heaving. I was at my absolute limit. If that thing hadn't died when it did, we would have been the ones left in the dirt. After catching my breath, I stood up and walked to the corpse. I carved out its heart, the ogre heart. It was the quest item I needed, but there was only one. I looked at the heart, then at the woman resting nearby. "Hey," I said, walking over. "I'm Lin Yuan. Here, you take the heart." Normally, I'm not the type to give away my loot, but she had given me those recovery pills. Without them, I'd be dead. I'm not the kind of guy who forgets a favor. She stood up and looked at me with those distant eyes. "I don't want it," she said flatly. Then, she just turned around and walked away. "You don't want it?" I was stunned. By the time I snapped out of it, she was already deep into the shadows of the forest. "Wait, what's your name?" She didn't answer. She just vanished into the trees. What a strange, icy woman. I looked down at the spot where she'd been sitting and noticed something shimmering in the grass. It was a jade pendant. She must have dropped it. I picked it up and tried to call out again, but she was long gone. "I guess I'll keep it for now," I muttered, tucking it into my pocket. "I'll return it if we ever meet again." The sun was setting, so I headed back to the city. On the way, I checked my status. My progress in the chi refinement stage was at 29.98%. My Duga 9 swords were at the 6th level of proficiency, but my sonic step, my only earth-grade technique, was still only at the 2nd level. Earth-grade techniques were no joke. The gap between them and lower ranks was massive, especially when it came to energy consumption. I could use my sword all day, but a few bursts of sonic step left me bone dry. I definitely needed to buy more recovery pills. Back in the city, I turned in the quest. The reward was decent: 2 chi refinement pills and 50,000 spirit coins. I messaged Li Fei to see if she wanted the pills, but she didn't reply. She was probably already asleep. The next morning, I went to the pharmacy to restock. My jaw nearly dropped when I saw the price. 30,000 coins for 1 bottle, and there were only 5 pills inside. That meant I had swallowed 30,000 coins worth of medicine yesterday in just a few seconds. Cultivating is a rich man's game. "Lin Yuan, what are you doing here?" Someone slapped my shoulder. It was Wang Dazhuang, my heavy-set friend. "Oh, hey Dazhuang. Just taking a walk," I said. "Perfect timing," he said, puffing out his chest. "Come on, I'm gonna help you level up." I stared at him. Was he serious? I was a chi refiner who could solo tier 2 mutated beasts. He wanted to carry me? "What's with that look?" Dazhuang grinned. "I'm not hiding it anymore. I've reached the early stage of body refinement. I was aiming for a trade school, but now I think I can make it into a real college. I saw Li Fei yesterday. She's going into seclusion to train. Since she can't carry you anymore, I'll do it. We're brothers, after all." I was speechless. A guy who just barely hit the lowest level of body refinement was trying to mentor me. "Dazhuang, it's fine, really. I don't need." "No, you do." He grabbed my arm, refusing to let go. "I know you're depressed because of that useless spirit root. That's why you've been skipping school, right? Don't give up. I'll take you to the school's private hunting grounds. You might be slow, but if we work hard, you can still get into a decent school." He started dragging me along, lecturing me about not giving up on life. I just sighed and let him pull me. What else was I supposed to do? Dazhuang didn't care whether I agreed or not. He just grabbed my shoulder and dragged me toward the school gates. I let out a long sigh, looking at his enthusiastic face with a bitter smile. This was becoming a massive misunderstanding. We reached the school's great hunting ground. It was a restricted area where the academy kept mutated beasts in captivity so students who had just awakened their spirit roots could level up. Since these creatures were raised by humans, they were much weaker than wild ones. It was basically a training camp for rookies. Whoa, isn't that Lin Yuan? The coward who hid at home for half a month is finally back. I heard he awakened a spirit root, but it's the worst kind. Basically a piece of trash. As we walked in, the seniors from various classes started whispering and pointing. Even my homeroom teacher, Zhang Dongliang, noticed me from a distance. He rubbed his eyes hard, probably thinking he was hallucinating. "Lin Yuan? You actually came back to school? He asked, sounding hesitant. It's all thanks to me, teach. Dazhuang chirped, puffing out his chest. Zhang Dongliang looked even more confused. Thanks to you. Yeah, I saw him wandering around this morning looking totally depressed. I couldn't let him give up on himself, so I brought him here to help him level up. You help him? My teacher looked like his eyeballs were about to pop out of his head. Absolutely. I've already broken through to the early stage of body refinement. Carrying this rookie is a piece of cake. I told him already, even with a trash spirit root, if he works hard, he might still get into a bottom-tier vocational college. Confidence was practically radiating off Dazhuang, but I saw my teacher's eyelid twitch violently. I stood there awkwardly, not knowing how to break the news. Dazhuang meant well, so I just kept my mouth shut. I borrowed an iron sword from the teacher and followed Dazhuang deeper into the hunting grounds. We ignored the mocking stares and the insults from guys like Zhang Tingzhong, heading toward a secluded area. I have to admit, Dazhuang's bulk gave him a serious advantage. He swung a massive serrated hammer, smashing any mutated beast that lunged at us. They were either crushed instantly or sent flying. I acted shocked just to keep him happy. See that, Lin Yuan? Now you know why my weight is a weapon, he bragged. Suddenly, a terrifying roar echoed through the trees. My face paled as I looked up. A Tier 2 mutated beast, a blazing tiger. What was a Tier 2 beast doing in a training ground for beginners? Holy crap. Dazhuang's legs turned to jelly. He started shaking uncontrollably. The blazing tiger lunged. I didn't think. I just threw myself forward and blocked with the borrowed iron sword. Snap. The sword shattered instantly under the tiger's raw power. Lin Yuan, Dazhuang screamed, convinced I was dead. In a flash of black light, I summoned my black iron-heavy sword. Dazhuang's eyes widened. Wait, that sword. I've seen it somewhere. I didn't answer. I channeled my energy into my feet, executing the explosive step. Asterisk boom. Boom. Asterisk the sonic booms echoed as I slammed into the tiger, sending the Tier 2 beast flying back 15 meters. What the hell? Dazhuang's jaw hit the floor. He finally remembered where he'd seen that sword. On the news, held by the mysterious, masked genius who had been cleaning out the valley. His hammer clattered to the ground. Lin Yuan, you're... He was so shocked he started drooling, unable to finish his sentence. The blazing tiger roared and charged again. I didn't flinch. I flooded the heavy sword with spiritual power and met the beast head-on. Every step I took sounded like a cannon blast. The scene was so overwhelming that Dazhuang looked like he was about to faint. He realized then how ridiculous his earlier words were. He wanted to carry me? He wasn't even fit to carry my shoes. I plunged the heavy sword straight through the tiger's heart. It let out one final, earth-shaking roar before its massive body collapsed. Asterisk ding. Killed Tier 2 blazing tiger. Points plus 26. Cultivation plus 8860. Asterisk. I took a deep breath. That was close. If it weren't for the explosive step technique Li Fei gave me, that fight would have been a lot messier. Dazhuang, you okay? I walked over to my friend. Wah! Dazhuang burst into tears. He threw his mountain-like body at me, hugging me so hard I thought my ribs were going to snap. Lin Yuan, how could you lie to me? You broke my poor little heart. I was so worried about your self-esteem. I ignored everyone's laughing just to help you. And now I find out I'm the clown. He sobbed hysterically, wiping his nose and tears all over my clothes. I felt terrible. Dazhuang, I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. Suddenly, the sound of rushing wind cut through the air. Principal Jiang down and landed right in front of us. I used the distraction to push the sobbing Dazhuang away. What happened here? The principal asked, staring at the tiger's carcass in shock. A Tier 2 beast in the student grounds. Principal, this guy lied to me. Dazhuang yelled, pointing at me. You should have seen him. He had this huge black sword and was making explosions with his feet. He sent that tiger flying with one hit. The principal turned to me, his eyes wide. You've already reached the chi refinement stage? Yeah, just a couple of days ago, I said, scratching my head and trying to look humble. The principal stumbled back, nearly cursing out loud. It had only been a few days since we last spoke. This kid was a monster. He looked at the tiger again. A blazing tiger had the strength of a Tier 3 beast, Yet this kid killed it easily. Compared to Lin Yuan, the other geniuses in the school looked like trash. You two go back, the principal said seriously. I'll handle this. A Tier 2 beast appearing here is not normal. I need to investigate. I spent the rest of the afternoon helping Dazhuang hunt smaller beasts. By the time we left the hunting grounds at sunset, Dazhuang was vibrating with excitement. His cultivation bar had shot up. At this rate, he wasn't just going to a vocational school, he was aiming for a top-tier university. The hunting grounds were quiet as Dazhuang and I walked toward the exit. He was practically glowing. With his cultivation level jumping like that, he wasn't just looking at a vocational school anymore. He was looking at top-tier universities. As we stepped out of the gate, we ran right into Zhang Ting. Oh, look who it is, Zhang Ting sneered. He hadn't changed a bit. The trash with the useless spirit root. After hiding at home in shame for half a month, you finally grew a pair and showed up at school. I figured he was still bitter about the way Yang Fan had cursed him out before. I didn't even feel like responding, but Dazhuang didn't hold back. Shut up, you idiot, Dazhuang barked. Zhang Ting's face stiffened. Who are you calling an idiot? The idiot who's talking to me, Dazhuang said, looking at him like he was a complete moron. Useless spirit root? You clearly have no idea what you're talking about. If I hadn't seen how badass my brother is today, I might have actually believed your green tea bitch lies. I didn't say a word. I just kept walking. Dealing with a jumping clown like Zhang Ting was a waste of my energy. I'd rather wait for the college entrance exams and slap him across the face with the reality of who the real trash was. Dazhuang caught up to me as we reached the crossroads. Before we split up, I reached into my pocket. Yesterday, I'd finished a quest to get an ogre's heart and received 2 chi refinement pills as a reward. I'd already given one to Li Fei, and she didn't need more for now. Here, I said, handing the pill to the fat man. Dazhuang stared at the pill, his fat face trembling with excitement. Dad, from now on, you are my father. Please, let your son bow to you. He actually started to drop to his knees right there on the sidewalk. Get out of here, I laughed, kicking him playfully before he could actually hit the ground. I don't have a son that big. I told him I wouldn't be coming to the hunting grounds tomorrow and reminded him to keep my spirit root and my true level a secret. He promised, and we headed our separate ways. When I got home and finished my shower, I checked the class group chat. Dazhuang was already in there, stirring up a storm. Dazhuang, where did you get a chi refinement pill? One classmate asked. Those are incredibly rare and expensive. Dazhuang replied. I'm not even going to hide it anymore. The school's secret genius? He's my brother. He gave it to me. The chat exploded. Everyone was freaking out, asking if he actually knew the mysterious top student. Even Zhang Ting changed his tune. Dazhuang, brother. Zhang Ting typed, his tone suddenly sweet and desperate. Could you introduce me to him? I'd make it worth your while. Not a chance, Dazhuang shot back. Green tea bitches don't deserve an intro. I burst out laughing. This fatty really knew how to hold a grudge. Over the next 3 days, I threw myself into hunting outside the city. I needed more experience points. By the end of the 3rd day, I felt a surge of energy ripple through my veins. I had officially broken through from the early stage to the middle stage of chi refinement. Thanks to my Chaos Dao body, the stat boosts were insane. My strength, speed, and endurance didn't just increase, they multiplied. It really was the top-ranked physique for a reason. The only downside was the experience bar. The higher I got, the more points I needed. At this rate, reaching the nascent soul stage by the exams was going to be a struggle. Run for your lives. The shouting came from deep within the forest. A group of cultivators stumbled out of the brush, covered in blood. Some were missing limbs, their faces twisted in pure terror. A beast tide. It's a beast tide, they screamed. My eyes lit up. I had been complaining about how hard it was to find monsters, and now a whole wave was coming to me. It was like a gift from heaven. While the other cultivators scrambled toward the city gates, I shouldered my heavy black iron sword and ran straight toward the danger. As soon as I hit the tree line, a Tier 1 beast lunged at me, its jaws wide. I didn't even slow down. With a flick of my wrist, the heavy sword whistled through the air, piercing the beast's skull instantly. Asterisk boom. Boom. Asterisk. I activated my leopard steps. Each stomp sounded like a sonic boom. I tore through the forest like a whirlwind. Whether it was Tier 1 or Tier 2, nothing survived more than one strike. Who is that kid? One of the retreating cultivators stammered, stopping to watch. Look at that mask. His sword technique is so overbearing. It's like watching a grandmaster. We're saved, another cried. I want to marry him to show my gratitude. Shut up, you're a man. You'll just gross him out. I didn't care about the spectators. My leopard steps were smoother now. I could chain up to 8 steps at once, though most monsters died by the third. Notifications flooded my mind. Asterisk kill, Overlord Crab. EXP, +1, 708, asterisk. Asterisk kill, Poison Lizard. EXP, +1788. Kill, Two-Headed Turtle. EXP, +5885. My experience bar was skyrocketing. If I kept this up, I'd hit the late stage of chi refinement by tonight. But the intensity was draining my spiritual energy fast. I had to pop several recovery pills just to keep moving. Suddenly, several powerful auras landed nearby. It was Elder Tang and a group of high-level cultivators from the association. Who is this boy? One of the experts asked, his voice full of shock. Where did this sword technique come from? It's terrifyingly powerful. I've never heard of a heavy sword master like this in our city, another added. He's only at the chi refinement stage, yet his combat prowess is unnatural. Elder Tang didn't say anything at first, but I saw his eyes widen. Even with the mask, he recognized my aura. He sighed, looking both impressed and exhausted. A kid with an Earth-grade spirit root and a Chaos Dao body. Some people were just born to be the main characters of the world. Elder Tang, you look like you know him, one of the experts noted. I don't, Tang lied immediately. The association had strict rules about privacy. I'm just an old man who guards the door. How would I know a genius like that? By then, my energy was completely spent, and my supply of pills was running low. I decided to call it a day. I sheathed my sword and turned to leave, letting the experts handle the rest of the tide. Wait, young man. I hadn't gone 2 steps when someone blocked my path. A soft, floral scent hit my nose, and I looked up to see a woman with a stunning, curvaceous figure standing right in front of me. The woman standing before me was a true beauty. Her skin was pale, her curves were perfectly defined, and her lips had a natural, seductive pout. She carried herself with an air of elegance and wealth that made me feel like I'd just bumped into a literal sugar mommy. Senior, I said, keeping my voice steady. Is there something I can help you with? She was stunning, but I wasn't fooled. She had arrived by flying, a feat that required a cultivation level of at least the 7th stage of Golden Core. She was dangerous. I saw your swordplay and movement techniques just now, she said, her voice smooth. If you have time, you should come play at the battle arena. I'll be looking forward to your arrival. She handed me an exquisite, high-end business card. I took it and gave a polite, non-committal nod before turning to leave. I'd heard of the battle arena, a place where cultivators went to test their martial arts for rewards, but I had never stepped foot inside. Back in the city, I sold the materials I'd harvested from the monsters and headed to the Fong family shop to buy some spirit chi pills. While I was waiting, I overheard a group of people gossiping. Did you hear? A genius female sword master appeared at the arena these past 2 days. A genius? Really? Yeah, she's on a 7-fight winning streak. It's terrifying. The mention of the arena again piqued my curiosity. When I got home, I pulled out my phone and searched for information. A video popped up on my screen with the title, Chapter 19, Battle Arena Genius Crushes High School Talents. I clicked it, and my jaw dropped. Even through the grainy footage, I recognized that silhouette instantly. It was Li Fei. No wonder that little brat hadn't replied to my messages for days. Her so-called secluded meditation was actually her spending all her time at the arena, grinding her sword skills. I looked at the card the sexy woman had given me earlier. It had a contact number on it. After a moment of hesitation, I dialed. Half an hour later, I arrived at the Feng City Battle Arena. Handsome little brother, you actually came. Xiao Tong, the woman from the valley, greeted me with a radiant smile. She seemed genuinely thrilled to see me. Sister Tong, sorry to bother you, I said, feeling a bit awkward. Luckily, I was wearing my mask, so she couldn't see my face. It's no trouble at all, she chirped, grabbing my arm and pulling me toward the entrance. Our arena loves nothing more than monstrous geniuses like you. I froze for a second. Her grip was firm, and I couldn't help but notice how soft her touch was. We'd only met twice, and she was already being this forward. Inside, the arena was massive. Dozens of stages were arranged in concentric circles. The smaller, more numerous ones were on the outside, while the larger, more prestigious stages sat near the center. My eyes scanned the crowd until they landed on stage 13. There she was. Li Fei was in the middle of a heated match. I knew it. Had she really been living here the last few days? Was she the genius sword master everyone was talking about? Taking a liking to that little girl? Xiao Tong teased, noticing where I was looking. Sister Tong, don't joke around, I muttered. That girl is actually my niece, she whispered, a mischievous glint in her eye. If you really like her, I can set you up. But I should warn you, she's picky. She's always talking about some brother Xiao fan of hers. I stared at her, completely stunned. What? You're her aunt. Xiao Tong looked surprised by my reaction. She leaned in, studying me closely as if she wanted to rip the mask off my face. You know her? No, I don't. I lied quickly. I was just shocked that she's your niece. The arena was a den of snakes. Even if Xiao Tong was beautiful, I didn't know her true intentions yet. I wasn't about to blow my cover. On the stage, Li Fei won her match with a graceful strike, drawing a roar of applause from the crowd. But then, a man with a buzz cut and a heavy saber jumped onto the platform. He looked at Li Fei with a disgusting, predatory smirk. Little sister, I heard you're a genius from Mengshi High School, he sneered, his eyes wandering over her body. My identity is none of your business, Li Fei snapped. Stop talking and draw your sword. She lunged forward, clearly disgusted by his gaze. The man laughed, swinging his wide-backed saber in broad, lethal arcs. Li Fei was fast and elegant, but she lacked raw power. Within moments, she was forced into a desperate defense, retreating step by step. I watched from the sidelines, my heart tightening. Even though she was losing, she grit her teeth and refused to surrender. Xiao Tong glanced at me, her eyes full of suspicion. For someone who claimed not to know her niece, I was acting awfully nervous. Xiao Tong explained the rules to me. To keep things fair, all participants had to suppress their cultivation below the body refinement stage. No spiritual energy allowed, only raw physical strength and martial technique. Clang! Another heavy collision echoed through the hall. The impact was too much. The sword flew out of Li Fei's hand, clattering across the stone floor. Tisk, TSK. Little sister, your swordplay is pathetic, the buzzcut man mocked. How about you come to my bed tonight? I'll teach you some real techniques. The crowd erupted in crude laughter. Li Fei's face turned bright red with humiliation, her body trembling. She looked like she was on the verge of tears. I'll take his place, I shouted. I leaped onto the stage, landing firmly between them. Every eye in the building turned toward me. Brother Xiao Fan? How are you here? Li Fei gasped. Even with the mask, she recognized me instantly. Beside the stage, Xiao Tong's eyes widened in shock. Asterisk Brother Xiao Fan? This was the guy she wouldn't stop talking about. Asterisk. She realized I had lied to her face about not knowing her niece. We'll talk later, I said, reaching out to pat Li Fei's head. Go wait for me below. Okay. Good luck, Brother Xiao Fan. A bright smile returned to her chubby face as she hopped off the stage. The buzzcut man sneered at me. You a student from Mengshi High too? You're not qualified to know who I am, I said coldly. Arrogant brat. He roared and swung his heavy saber down at my head. I didn't flinch. I reached into my storage ring and pulled out my black iron-heavy sword. Clang, crack, thud. In 3 swift, heavy sounds, the fight was over. The crowd gasped in horror. The man's wide-back saber had snapped in half. He had been sent flying off the stage, landing like a dead dog, coughing up blood. I stood there, my massive sword resting on my shoulder. The silence was deafening as everyone stared at the giant blade in my hand. They had never seen such a violent, unstoppable style of swordplay. The power behind my strike was terrifying. I had taken down the top genius from Rudong High in just 3 hits. Humph, is this all you've got? I looked down at the buzzcut cultivator sprawling on the floor. You actually dared to harass Fair with such pathetic skills? Ridiculous. My gaze was cold, treating him like nothing more than a stray dog. You. The man's face twisted with rage. He tried to speak, but the fury overwhelmed him. He coughed up another massive spray of blood and collapsed. Vermin, how dare you hurt my junior brother? A gravelly, furious voice boomed through the arena. A shadow fell over the stage. A man nearly 7 feet tall slammed onto the stone tiles. The crowd gasped as they recognized him. It was Zhang Yong, the #1 saber user from Mengshi High. People whispered that he had awakened an Earth-grade saber spirit root and that his tyrant saber style was flawless. This kid is finished, someone muttered. Zhang Yong is going to beat him so hard his own mother won't recognize him. I saw Li Fei's expression tighten. She was terrified for me. Kneel, Zhang Yong roared. His voice was like rolling thunder, using his sheer size to try and intimidate me. I didn't blink. Where did this dog come from? Did someone forget to put him on a leash? The crowd went dead silent. No one expected me to insult a powerhouse like Zhang Yong to his face. You're looking for death. Zhang Yong's face turned purple. He gripped a massive, pitch-black saber and swung it at me with a deafening boom. The impact sent me sliding back 3 steps. My arms felt a slight sting. Incredible, the spectators shouted. That's the power of an Earth-grade spirit root. His saber chi is on another level. Yeah, but look at that kid from Mengshi, another replied. He actually blocked a full-strength strike from the tyrant saber. I thought he'd be crushed instantly. Zhang Yong narrowed his eyes, a cruel smirk playing on his lips. Interesting. You survived 1 hit. I adjusted my grip on the black iron-heavy sword. Is that so? I hope you're still smiling in a minute. Ignorant brat. Zhang Yong laughed, completely dismissing me. I leaned forward, my muscles coiling like springs. I didn't use spiritual energy. I used pure, raw physical strength. I exploded forward. Asterisk boom. Boom. Asterisk. The sound of sonic brakes shattered the air. Zhang Yong's eyes widened. He barely got his black saber up before my heavy sword was in his face. Clang. The collision sounded like a mountain collapsing. The shockwave sent Zhang Yong flying back dozens of meters. He barely managed to stay on the stage. What? Did he use spiritual energy? Someone yelled. That's against the rules. Are you blind? Another shouted back. Those were sonic booms from his footsteps. That's pure physical power. What kind of movement technique is that? The crowd was losing their minds. They thought this would be a one-sided slaughter, but I was matching the tyrant blow for blow. Zhang Yong stared at me, his heart racing. He knew the truth. That single strike had nearly shattered his arms. My strength was monstrous, far beyond what my lean frame suggested. I underestimated you, vermin, Zhang Yong said, his voice dropping an octave. He took a deep breath, finally taking me seriously. You are worthy of being my opponent. Let's settle this. I let out a short, dry laugh. Worthy? You think you're on my level? You son of a... Zhang Yong lost it. He charged at me, his saber glowing with dark energy. Within 3 strikes, I said coldly, you'll be off this stage. I moved. Asterisk boom. Boom. Asterisk. Every step I took increased my momentum. The air around my sword began to tear, creating a visible pressure wave. We collided again. Crack. Zhang Yong's web of his thumb split open. Blood sprayed as he desperately clung to his saber to keep it from flying away. He was stumbling back, his defense wide open. I didn't stop. I used the rebound to pivot, stepping once, twice, 8 times. Each step was a hammer blow to the ground. Kaboom. The sound was ear-splitting. Zhang Yong, a 2-meter-tall giant, was sent flying like a cannonball. He soared through the air and crashed into the dirt outside the ring. Snap. His pitch-black saber snapped clean in half. The silence that followed was absolute. The tyrant saber of Rudong Hai had been dismantled in 3 moves. He lost, someone whispered. 3 swords. It only took 3 swords. I stood in the center of the stage, the black iron-heavy sword resting in my hand. My mask hid my face, but my aura was suffocating. The people who had called me a rookie earlier were now red-faced and quiet. The #1 saber user of Rudong? I mocked. I expected more. You couldn't even handle 3 hits. Zhang Yong looked up from the dirt, his face turning a deep shade of violet. He pointed a trembling finger at me, tried to speak, and then vomited a mouthful of blood before passing out cold. Wow, Brother Xiao Fan is so cool. Li Fei was jumping up and down, her eyes sparkling like a fangirl. Beside her, Xiao Tong looked stunned. She was becoming more and more curious about the face behind my mask. She knew Li Fei was picky. For a guy to win her over like this, he had to be something special. Let me test your skills. A cold, crisp voice cut through the noise. A white-clad figure blurred across the arena, landing gracefully on the stage. I froze. I knew that silhouette. It's Han Bing, the crowd erupted. The #1 genius of Rudong. They say her sword skills are already at the master level. Even Zhang Yong lost to her 3 times in a row. This is it. A real battle between sword experts. I stared at the girl in white. This was going to be much harder than the last one. The crowd below the stage was buzzing. Everyone was wondering why I didn't just use a saber to match my opponent, but my eyes were locked on the girl in white. Her name was Han Bing, the top sword expert from Rudong High. I realized I still had the jade pendant she'd lost back in the valley. I figured I'd return it to her after this. Go for it, Brother Xiao Fan. Kick some butt. Li Fei's voice rang out from the sidelines, cheering me on at the top of her lungs. On the other side of the stage, Zhang Yong struggled to his feet. His face was pale, and his hands were shaking uncontrollably, covered in tiny cracks from trying to block my heavy sword. He looked at Han Bing with a grim expression. Be careful, he spat out. This kid is a monster. He looked down at his own hands, probably wondering if his Earth-grade saber root was a counterfeit. My 3 strikes had delivered more raw power than he could handle. Long time no see, I said, trying to be polite. Han Bing didn't say a word. Her expression remained cold and arrogant. Suddenly, a soft, snake-like flexible sword slid out from her sleeve. She lunged. My skin crawled. We had fought side by side briefly in the ogre territory, so I knew how terrifying her technique was. She was easily my equal. I swung my heavy sword to parry, but the impact felt like hitting a high-tension spring. My palm went numb. I grunted and stopped holding back. I triggered my explosive steps, the air booming under my feet as I launched a relentless assault. To the crowd, my black iron heavy sword looked like a massive, clumsy coffin lid. But in my hands, it was weightless. I slashed, stabbed, and parried with fluid precision. Is he a freak? Someone yelled from the crowd. How can he move a heavy sword like that? Chill. Keep it down, another whispered. Zhang Yong is right there. You're hurting his pride. Zhang Yong's face turned from white to a deep, shameful red. He had been the #1 saber of Rudong his whole life. But standing here, he realized he wasn't even fit to carry our shoes. Han Bing was incredible. Her style wasn't flashy like mine, but it was deadly. Her soft sword moved like a venomous serpent, striking at my vitals from impossible angles. Only a freak like me could keep up. Anyone else would have been turned into a pincushion within 2 rounds. We blurred across the stage, our physical strength alone leaving afterimages in the air. The tension was suffocating. One wrong move meant a trip to the hospital or the morgue. As we clashed, I noticed something amazing. My proficiency with the Duga 9 swords was skyrocketing. The pressure of fighting a real master was doing wonders for my growth. But I got distracted by the notification, and her blade grazed my arm. It was just a scratch, but it snapped me back to reality. I focused everything I had. The fight lasted 30 minutes. Neither of us could gain the upper hand. The spectators were speechless. 2 teenagers with sword skills that could rival the best masters in the city? It was unheard of. Finally, we both came to a dead stop. My heavy sword was pointed at her throat. Her thin blade was pressed against my stomach. It was a draw. Incredible, a man in the crowd gasped. Mengshi Hai is really going to take off this year. I heard they had a hidden genius, but I thought it was just a rumor. Jiang Daonan is a crafty old fox for keeping this kid a secret. The mockery from earlier was gone. I had earned their respect. I sheathed my heavy sword, and Han Bing retracted her flexible blade. She turned to leave without a word. Hey, wait. I called out. She paused and looked back. What? You dropped this. I pulled the jade pendant from my storage ring. Her cold mask cracked for a second. She looked stunned. She walked over, took the pendant from my hand in silence, and walked away. Wow, okay. Not even a thank you. I muttered, shaking my head. I heard a sharp, Jealous huff from below the stage. Li Fei was standing there with her arms crossed, her pout so big you could hang a coat on it. I jumped down, feeling a bit awkward. So, you're the brother Xiao fan this little girl won't stop talking about. Xiao Tong walked over, a teasing smirk on her face. Auntie, stop it. Li Fei grabbed Xiao Tong's arm, her face turning bright red. We're just friends, I added quickly. Pinch. Ow. Feier, what was that for? I yelped as she dug her nails into my arm. Xiao Tong just laughed, her whole body shaking with amusement. She was incredibly charming, but I was confused. Li Fei called her auntie, but I called her Sister Tong. The family tree was getting messy, but she looked way too young to be called an auntie, so I decided to stick with Sister Tong for my own safety. The sun was setting, so I said my goodbyes. Before leaving, I gave the chi refinement pill I'd won to Li Fei. That earned me more teasing from Xiao Tong and left Li Fei blushing like a tomato. When I got home, I checked the school group chat. It was blowing up. Big news. Our school's secret genius just destroyed the 2 top stars of Rudong High at the arena tonight. What? The masked guy was there. Yeah, he beat Tyrant Saber Zhang Yong in 3 hits. Made him spit blood. No way. Is there a video? No video, but I have photos. Look, the chat went wild. Even though they didn't know the masked guy was me, they were bursting with pride. My school, Mingxi High, was finally on top. Then, Zhang Ting posted a message. I've decided. I'm going to pursue him. I'm going to make the masked genius mine. What? Goddess Ting, you're going after him? The guys cried out. He's amazing, she wrote, acting all sentimental. Even if I fail, I have to try. A man like that deserves someone like me. I stared at my phone, feeling a wave of nausea. Back when I was a loser who failed his awakening, she wouldn't even look at me. Now that a genius appeared, she was suddenly full of devotion. It was pathetic. I stared at my phone, the nausea hitting me in waves. Looking at Zhang Ting's messages, I felt like I was watching a bad soap opera. Even if she tried to chase me, the real me, I wouldn't want her. Honestly, if she tried to chase my best friend, the fatty, I'd tell him to run for his life. She wasn't worth the dirt on our shoes. Thankfully, Wang Dazhuang couldn't stay quiet. He jumped into the chat and started roasting her immediately. Don't get ahead of yourself, Zhang Ting, he wrote. Some people really love playing the green tea act. There are only a few dozen days left until the college entrance exams. I can't wait to see you crying when reality hits. Zhang Ting exploded like a poked porcupine, accusing him of being too harsh, but Dazhuang didn't give her an inch. He tore into her until the whole group chat devolved into a chaotic shouting match. I eventually had to close the app. Fatty might be a goofball, but he always had my back. He knew how she'd treated me, and he wasn't letting her slide. The next morning, I headed out of the city to hunt. After my fight at the arena, I discovered a shortcut to leveling up my skills, training without using any spiritual energy. By relying purely on my physical strength to execute moves, my stamina drained twice as fast, but my proficiency points skyrocketed. I gripped my black iron heavy sword and charged. Asterisk boom. Boom. Asterisk. I used my movement technique, the leopard step, to weave through the valley. I stayed away from tier 2 monsters for now. Without spiritual energy, they were still too dangerous. But the tier 1 beasts were perfect targets. Ding. Killed tier 1 Overlord Crab. Points plus 11. Ding. Killed tier 1 Poison Lizard. Points plus 12. Cultivation plus 1,788. Ding. Killed tier 1 Black Wild Dog. Points plus 14. Cultivation plus 2,005. As the sun began to dip, I stopped to check my stats. My cultivation was at 79.98% of the middle stage of body refinement. My Duga 9 swords was only 40,000 points away from reaching the 9th level of mastery. But the most exciting part? I had finally accumulated over 10,000 system points. It was time for another spin on the gacha wheel. The virtual wheel appeared in my mind, spinning faster and faster until it landed on a book icon. Ding! Congratulations! You have obtained the special technique, Puppet Mastery. My eyes widened as the information flooded my brain. This wasn't a standard combat skill. It allowed me to use monster materials to create and control puppets to fight alongside me. The puppets ranged from mortal grade all the way up to god grade. I realized I already had the materials for a basic mortal-grade puppet from the monsters I'd hunted today. I kept what I needed and headed back to the city to sell the rest. As I approached Old Kai's shop, a shrill, mocking voice cut through the air. Well, look who it is. If it isn't the loser, Lin Yuan. What's wrong? Too depressed to show your face at school? I looked up and sighed. Zhang Ting. Again. She was standing near the shop in trance, looking smug. What are you doing here? I asked, keeping my voice flat. I'm waiting for our school's secret genius, she said, tossing her hair. I did some digging. Word is he comes to this shop often to sell high-level materials. Why are you here, you deadbeat? Get lost before he shows up and misunderstands why you're talking to me. She pulled out a small mirror and started touching up her makeup. I nearly gagged. I couldn't believe the original owner of this body used to have a crush on her while ignoring a girl as sweet as Li Fei. Fine, I said with a smirk. Good luck waiting. I walked past her, sold my materials to a confused Old Kai, and went home to sleep. An hour later, I checked the group chat. Where is he? It's freezing out here. Zhang Ting had posted. 2 hours later. I bet he's watching me from the shadows, testing my sincerity. 3 hours later, Fatty posted a high-definition photo of her shivering under a street lamp. Breaking news. A certain green tea is camping outside a shop to harass my brother, but he never showed. Now she's just catching a cold. LOL. The chat erupted in laughter. I didn't join in. I had work to do. The next morning, I went back to the valley, but I didn't start hunting immediately. I sat down and tried to assemble my first mortal-grade puppet. Failure. The materials crumbled. I tried again. Failure. The process was incredibly delicate. Even though I was failing, my proficiency in puppet mastery was rising. I spent half the day and went through my entire stockpile of materials without a single success. This is harder than it looks, I muttered, wiping sweat from my forehead. I spent the afternoon hunting more monsters to replenish my supplies. Finally, after hours of trial and error, I managed to snap the last piece into place. The puppet looked vaguely human, but was stitched together from various monster parts. It looked like something out of a nightmare. Go, I commanded, using the technique to link my mind to it. The puppet lurched forward. Just then, a Tier 1 monster appeared in the distance. I sent the puppet to attack. Thud. With one hit from the monster, my brand new puppet flew 6 meters through the air and shattered into a pile of junk. Are you kidding me? I stared at the wreckage. It was weaker than a beginner cultivator. I killed the monster myself, feeling disappointed. I had hoped for a combat partner, but this thing couldn't take a punch. Then, I had an idea. I pulled out a small harvesting knife and tucked it into the hand of a second, hastily repaired puppet. Collect the materials, I ordered. The puppet moved clumsily, but it started carving up the carcass. It was slow and awkward, but it worked. My eyes lit up. If I could build a dozen of these, I wouldn't have to waste time gathering loot anymore. I could focus entirely on killing, while my puppet army handled the dirty work. Now, that was a plan. I set back to work, hunting down a pack of Tier 1 monsters to restock my supplies. By the time evening approached, I had successfully built 3 more basic puppets. As I practiced the jade turtle technique, my control over them became smoother and more natural. I noticed something surprising about these low-level creations. Even though they were clumsy at first, moving like 80-year-old men, they seemed to possess a basic ability to learn. The very first one I built was already getting much faster at harvesting materials than when it started. Suddenly, a notification flashed in my mind. My proficiency in the jade turtle technique had reached level 2. This unlocked a whole new tier, choice-grade puppets. Unlike the basic scrap ones, these came in 3 specialized types: combat, defense, and support. I was itching to test this out. I thought about heading into the Tier 2 monster territory to find better materials, but the sun was already dipping below the horizon. The wilderness at night is 10 times more dangerous than during the day. I forced myself to calm down and headed back to the city to rest. The next morning, I bolted out of the city gates the moment I finished breakfast. I reached the Tier 2 zone and released my basic puppets from my storage ring. Gripping my black iron-heavy sword, I began my hunt. The 3 basic puppets followed me like little subordinates. Every time I dropped a Tier 2 monster, they scrambled forward to harvest the loot. My efficiency skyrocketed. I didn't have to stop moving. I just kept killing. During my midday break, I couldn't wait any longer. I gathered the Tier 2 materials and attempted to craft a choice-grade puppet. My luck held out. I succeeded on the very first try. This new puppet was noticeably larger and sturdier. It was a support type. When I linked my mind to it, I realized it was a massive upgrade. It had specific commands for scouting, luring enemies, and standing guard. This was high-end gear. "Let's see what you can do," I muttered. I ordered it to go lure some monsters. The puppet blurred. It was incredibly fast, vanishing into the brush in seconds. A few minutes later, it came sprinting back toward me. Behind it, 3 or 4 monsters were howling in pursuit. My eyes nearly popped out of my head. The thing was a perfect bait runner. As the monsters closed in, I swung my heavy sword. The air exploded with the sound of my strikes. I cut through them in minutes. The notifications rolled in. A Tier 1 poison lizard for 1,788 experience. A Tier 2 double-horned beast for 5,885. And a Tier 2 black-scaled snake for 4,700. I looked at my support puppet, standing there patiently. It was fast, smart, and efficient. I sent it back out immediately. While it lured more prey and the basic puppets handled the carving, I sat back and focused on crafting even more puppets to level up my technique. It was a perfect system. By evening, I felt a surge of energy ripple through my body. I had broken through to the late stage of chi refinement. Even though I spent most of the day crafting, the sheer volume of monsters my puppets brought to me meant my experience gains had actually increased. I checked my progress. I had added another support puppet to my team, along with a combat type and a defense type. These choice-grade puppets were roughly as strong as Tier 1 monsters. It made me wonder just how powerful the Earth or Heaven-grade puppets would be. My stats were looking solid. My Duga 9 swords was at level 8, and my movement technique, Explosive Steps, was at level 7. The Jade Turtle technique was still only at level 2, since it only improved when I actually crafted something, but the utility was undeniable. The next day, I repeated the cycle. With more puppets under my command, my efficiency was off the charts. But that afternoon, something went wrong. I suddenly lost my mental connection with one of my support puppets. I stood up, frowning. I headed toward the last location I sensed it, a dense thicket of shrubs. When I found it, my heart sank. The puppet was nothing but a pile of white bones, sizzling with a foul-smelling white vapor. It had been dissolved by a powerful acid. Suddenly, my other nearby puppets were ambushed. I spun around, and my skin crawled. A human-faced demon spider was staring at me from the shadows. It was a Tier 3 monster. Its face looked disturbingly human, wearing a cold, twisted expression that sent a chill down my spine. The spider let out a piercing shriek and lunged, its 6 legs acting like powerful springs. I didn't hesitate. I activated my explosive steps and swung the black iron heavy sword with everything I had. The spider spat a glob of green liquid midair. I raised my sword to block, and the acid hissed as it ate into the metal. This was the same venom that had melted my puppet. "Die!" I warned. I combined the Duga 9 swords with my movement technique, going full throttle. My blade connected, sending the massive spider flying. It screeched in pain. It was a Tier 3 beast, but its strength lay in its ambush and venom, not raw power. Compared to a freak like me, it couldn't keep up. I didn't give it a chance to breathe. I hammered it with a barrage of strikes, the air booming with every movement. It wanted to kill my puppets? It picked the wrong master. With one final thrust, I pierced its skull. The notification chimed. Tier 3 human-faced demon spider killed. 55 points. 10,666 experience. I took a deep breath, wiping the sweat from my eyes. I whistled, signaling my remaining puppets to come over and start harvesting the remains. I called my remaining puppets over to harvest the valuable materials from the human-faced demon spider's carcass. But as they worked, a dark shadow flickered across the ground in front of me, blocking the sunlight. Instantly, a surge of extreme danger made my scalp tingle. My survival instinct screamed. I didn't even look back. I just bolted. I had barely taken a single step when a crushing pain slammed into my back. My body was sent flying like a cannonball. I hit the ground hard, gasping for air. I didn't have time to check my injuries. I scrambled to my feet, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Go! Block it!" I roared at my puppets. I commanded the ones harvesting materials to stay behind as a rearguard. Asterisk crack. Snap. Crunch. Asterisk. The sound of breaking wood and metal echoed through the brush. It sounded like bones snapping. The hair on my arms stood up. I had spent so much time crafting those high-quality puppets. Even the weakest had the strength of a Tier 1 monster. My defensive model was even tougher, boasting durability comparable to a Tier 2 beast. They didn't even last a second. They were wiped out instantly without a fight. A piercing, high-pitched shriek tore through the air. Even from a distance, the sound felt like needles stabbing into my eardrums. I didn't stop to look. I scrambled out of the thickets, rolling and sprinting, activating my movement technique to its absolute limit. I ran for my life toward the city gates, leaving a trail of blood on the dirt behind me. Finally, I reached the city entrance. I leaned against the stone wall, my lungs burning. I looked back, making sure that terrifying thing hadn't followed me. Only then did I let myself breathe. "What happened to you?" a cold, calm voice asked. I looked up. It was Han Bing, the genius student from Rudong Middle School. She was standing there, her eyes wide with shock as she looked at my tattered, bloody clothes. I'm fine," I managed to wheeze out. I tried to stand up straight, but the world suddenly started spinning. My legs turned to jelly. Thud. I lost my balance and fell forward, landing right in Han Bing's arms. A faint, elegant fragrance hit my nose. My head rested against something incredibly soft. "Wow, that's soft. You bastard." A high-pitched scream echoed in my ears. The next thing I felt was my head slamming hard against the stone wall behind me. Everything went black. I don't know how much time passed before I slowly drifted back to consciousness. The first thing I saw when I opened my eyes was a massive face. It was a round, fleshy face, wobbling with fat as it grinned down at me. Holy crap! A ghost! I panicked. My hand flew out instinctively. Slap! I caught the fat face with a solid backhand, sending whoever it was spinning across the room. A loud wail followed the impact. Wait, ghosts don't scream like that. My head cleared as I sat up, rubbing my temple. Fatty, what are you doing here? Where's Han Bing? On the floor across the room, Wang Dazhuang was clutching his cheek. His face, already round, was now swollen even further with a bright red handprint. Brother Lin, I'll kill you, he barked, his voice cracking. You ungrateful, girl-crazy jerk. Do you have a conscience? You wake up, slap me in the face without a word, and then the first thing you do is ask about Han Bing? He rubbed his swollen jaw, looking at me with the pouting expression of a wronged wife. Sorry, I said, feeling incredibly awkward. I just saw a giant moon face the second I opened my eyes. It was a reflex. I quickly asked him what happened after I blacked out. Apparently, after Han Bing pushed me off her and I knocked myself out on the wall, she ran into Wang Dazhuang while trying to get me back into the city. Fatty took over and brought me home. I sighed, feeling a pang of regret. Those destroyed puppets were worth 2 million credits. That hurt more than the wounds. Brother Lin, how did you get hurt so bad? Fatty asked, his tone turning serious. You were covered in blood when I found you. Just bad luck, I muttered. I ran into something terrifying while leveling up outside the city. What kind of thing? Who knows? I didn't stay long enough to ask for its ID. I just ran for my life. I almost didn't make it. Thinking back to that shadow in the woods made me break out in a cold sweat. If it weren't for those puppets acting as a distraction, I'd be dead. You should stay inside for a while, Fatty warned. The principal told us things have been unstable around the city lately. I hear you. Anyway, Fatty, I need you to go buy some materials for me. Materials? For what? I didn't explain. I just scribbled a list of puppet-making components on a piece of paper and handed it to him. His father, Wang Fugue, owned a materials shop, so I knew he could get them at a fair price. While Fatty was out, I pulled the remaining materials from my storage ring and started crafting. An hour later, the door swung open. Brother Lin, I'm B.A., Holy Mother of God. What is that thing? Fatty froze in the doorway, his legs shaking so hard I thought he'd collapse. He looked like he wanted to run, but his feet were glued to the floor. Relax, Fatty. It's just a puppet I made. It won't hurt people. You made that. He calmed down slightly, watching as I commanded the puppet to move. Once he realized it was under my control, His fear turned into curiosity. He walked circles around it, poking at its joints. This thing looks tough. Can it actually fight? I smirked. Try it yourself and see. All right. Watch out. Mount Thai press. Fatty roared, lunging at the puppet. Oof. Ow, ow, ow. In a split second, the puppet caught him and pinned him to the floor. My mother. How is this thing so strong? He groaned from under the puppet's grip. It's a high-quality model, I said proudly. Its strength is on par with a Tier 1 monster. Fatty's eyes lit up. Suddenly, he dropped to his knees in front of me. Whoa, Fatty. What are you doing? Are you sick? Brother Lin, you're my hero. You're my father, he shouted. Sell me 2 of these. My family has money. Name your price. He started thumping his head on the floor in a kowtow. I jumped up and kicked him over before he could finish. Get lost. I don't even have a girlfriend. I'm not having a son as big as you. I can give you a few, but only if you can learn the control script. I laughed it off. I didn't have many friends at school, but Wang Dazhuang was the real deal. When everyone else shunned me because they thought I had no spirit root, he stayed by my side. That was enough for me. Control script? What's that? It's the command technique to lead them. If you can't learn it, the puppets are just expensive paperweights. They won't listen to you. I started teaching him the basics. The script had 2 parts, crafting and controlling. Controlling was much easier. Fatty was more focused than I'd ever seen him. He studied those movements harder than he studied his secret movie collection. After 2 hours of practice, he finally managed to give the puppet a simple command. He was so excited he started dancing, trying to kowtow to me again until I kicked him away. Wait, Brother Lin. Fatty paused, staring at me. Your injuries, they're gone? He looked at me in disbelief. He had been the one to bandage me up when he brought me home. He knew exactly how deep those gashes were. It had only been a few hours, and I was moving around like nothing happened. I had some high-grade healing pills. I lied. The truth was my Chaos Dao body. I had realized that besides boosting my cultivation speed and technique mastery, it had an incredible healing factor. By the time the afternoon was over, I was already back to full strength. I stayed at Fatty's house until the sun started to dip below the horizon. I spent the entire afternoon refining puppets. Before I left, I handed him 4 of my best creations, 2 attack types, 1 defense type, and 1 support type. With these by his side, he'd be able to retreat safely even if he ran into a Tier 2 beast. When I got home, I hopped in the shower and checked my reflection. The deep gashes were gone. Only a few faint red lines remained where the wounds had been. My healing speed was terrifying. The Chaos Dao body really was the king of the 10 great constitutions. It was incredible. I crawled into bed and checked my phone. Fatty was already making waves in the class group chat. Family, I'm done hiding it. Wang Dazhuang messaged, clearly riding a high. My goal isn't some backwater 3rd-tier college anymore. I'm going for Qingbei University. The chat exploded. Fatty, with your cultivation speed? You want to go to the top school in the country? I'm dying over here. I have a grade 6 Waterwood spirit root, and even I don't dare dream of Qingbei, another student chimed in. Who do you think you are? Fatty didn't back down. He wasn't the best student, and he wasn't much to look at, but he had a silver tongue. He started a war of words against the entire group. Then, he dropped the hammer. He posted a few high-quality photos of the puppets I gave him. The chat went silent. A second later, the same people mocking him were calling him Brother Fatty. The next morning, I headed back outside the city walls to hunt. I needed to raise my realm. I steered clear of the shrubbery where I'd been ambushed the day before. I still didn't know what that thing was. It had wiped out my puppets in a single breath. It was haunting. I used the materials I bought to refine a new batch of puppets. I set up a system. The support puppet lured monsters in, the attack puppets harvested materials, and the defense puppet kept watch. Around noon, I took a break to grab some food from my storage ring. That's when I saw her. Han Bing was walking nearby, heading straight for the dangerous shrubbery. Han Bing, don't go over there. I shouted. There's something in there you can't handle. She glanced back at me for a split second, then kept walking. She didn't say a word. I stood there, speechless. What was her problem? Was she really that arrogant? Just because I accidentally bumped into her while I was bleeding out yesterday, she was going to act like I didn't exist? Fine. I wasn't going to beg her to listen. I finished my lunch and went back to work. By evening, Han Bing still hadn't come back. I looked toward the shrubs, wondering if I should check on her. Suddenly, a roar tore through the air, followed by the sound of a violent struggle. "Stubborn girl," I muttered. "I warned you." I grabbed my black iron-heavy sword and sprinted toward the noise. We weren't close, but we'd fought together before. I couldn't just let her die. By the time I reached the thicket, the sounds of fighting had stopped. My heart sank. I scanned the area, but there was no sign of her. Had that shadow monster already eaten her? A twig broke in the bushes ahead. I gripped my sword and crept forward, silent as a ghost. Suddenly, a blade flashed toward me. I parried, the force of the impact vibrating up my arms. I prepared to counterattack, but then I froze. My eyes nearly popped out of my head. "Han Bing, what are you doing taking your clothes off in broad daylight?" "You bastard! Why is it you?" she screamed. She was standing there, holding her sword, her clothes half off and barely covering her. She looked as stunned as I was. She scrambled to clutch her collar shut. She had been treating a wound when she heard me coming and thought it was a monster. She didn't even have time to dress before attacking. I felt like an idiot. First the incident at the city gate, and now I'd seen her like this. She looked like she wanted to crawl into a hole and die. "Don't get the wrong idea," I stammered, turning red. "I heard a fight and thought you were in trouble. Turn around. Now," she hissed, her face burning. "Right? Turning. I'm turning. Watch out." A black shadow lunged from behind her. I didn't think. I tackled her. We hit the ground hard, and in the chaos, her collar flew open again. Her skin was incredibly fair. "You jerk. I'm going to kill you," she yelled. Then she saw the shadow fly over us. Her anger turned to sharp focus. She kicked me off, and despite her embarrassment, she knew we had a problem. I scrambled up, feeling guilty as hell. I swear I wasn't trying to take advantage of her. It was an emergency. I raised my sword. The creature was a Tier 3 Gale leopard. It was fast, moving like a blur of gray fur and claws. It roared and lunged again. I met it head-on. My footsteps shook the ground as I unleashed my power. Han Bing quickly buttoned her shirt, her face still flushed, and joined the fray. We fell back into our rhythm. With both of us working together, the leopard didn't stand a chance. We cut it down in seconds. "Was that the thing that attacked you yesterday?" she asked, catching her breath. "I don't know," I said, looking at the carcass. It happened too fast for me to see. The woods were getting dark and eerie. We didn't linger. As soon as we left, the forest went dead silent. No birds, no insects. Then, a massive shadow emerged from beneath a rock and swallowed the leopard's body whole. A few days later, my support puppet lured in a fresh pack of Tier 2 beasts. After I finished them off, a warmth spread through my arm. My proficiency with the Duga 9 swords had finally reached the perfection realm. I let go of my sword. The heavy iron blade didn't fall. It hovered right beneath my palm, vibrating with energy. Just then, another puppet returned, trailing a pack of monsters led by a Tier 3 bloodthirsty wolf. "Perfect timing," I muttered. "Let's see what perfection looks like." I flicked my fingers. The sword flew into my hand, fueled by an invisible force. I moved like a ghost, leaving afterimages as I struck. Usually, I need to use my Earth-grade movement techniques to dominate a Tier 3 beast. Now, I didn't even need them. The wolf couldn't even keep up with my blade. It let out a pathetic whimper, dead before it could even show me what it was capable of. The bloodthirsty wolf collapsed at my feet. I checked my status screen, and a wave of satisfaction washed over me. I'd gained 9,600 cultivation points and 50 credits. But more importantly, my Duga 9 swords had finally reached the perfection realm. It hadn't been easy. It took nearly 20 days of relentless hunting and practice to get here. I tested a few swings, feeling the blade hum. The power of the technique had increased fivefold. It was worth every second of effort. Now, my eyes were on my movement technique, first step. I wondered how much stronger it would get at the perfection realm. My progress with the Jade Return formula had also hit level 3, which meant I could finally craft spirit-grade puppets. There was just one problem. One of the required materials was the heart of a Tier 4 nether demon tiger. I shook my head. A Tier 4 beast would eat me for breakfast right now. I'd have to try my luck at the material shops later. Even if I found the heart, crafting a spirit-grade puppet on the first try would be a massive gamble. That night, I headed home and messaged Li Fei. I'd promised to teach her the Duga 9 swords once I mastered it. I waited for a while, but she didn't reply. I figured she was probably at the arena again, obsessed with leveling up her own skills. I turned off my phone and went to sleep. The next morning, she finally messaged me back. We agreed to meet at the city gates. Half an hour later, we were standing in a secluded grassy field outside the walls. The Duga 9 swords is divided into 9 stances, I explained, holding my heavy iron sword. It's all about anticipating the enemy. There is no retreat. At its peak, you don't even need specific moves, you just react. Watch closely, Feier. I moved. My sword blurred, splitting into 9 afterimages that tore through the air. It was a terrifying display of speed and precision. When I finished, I turned to her. Did you get all that? Li Fei stuck out her tongue, her face flushing red. It's so hard, Xiaofan. Can you show me one more time? I was confused. When I first learned it, I got it instantly. Was it really that difficult? I sighed and went again, slowing down my movements so she could track the blade. 2 hours passed. I was exhausted. That's the 10th time, Feier. Please tell me you have it. I think I barely remember this version, she whispered, looking embarrassed. You're a little slow, aren't you? I teased. Hey, don't call me slow, she cried, lunging at me playfully. I'm trying my best. Your sword style is just too complicated. She started chasing me around the field, laughing and swinging her arms. Try and catch me. I laughed, stepping backward. My heel caught on a thick tree root. My balance snapped. I hit the ground hard, and before I could react, Li Fei tripped right over me. She landed squarely on my chest. The laughter stopped instantly. We both froze, staring at each other. The air got very quiet and very awkward. Cough, cough. The sound of someone clearing their throat made us jump. We scrambled apart like we'd been electrocuted. Brother? What are you doing here? Li Fei squeaked, her face turning a deep shade of crimson. My heart sank. Brother? I looked up to see a tall, muscular man walking toward us. He moved with the confidence of a seasoned warrior, his aura suppressed but powerful. This guy was a serious expert. I was just teaching her a sword technique, I stammered. I swear, I didn't mean for that to happen. It was just a stupid tree root. Teaching her? Li Jinni asked, his eyes flickering between us with a knowing smirk. On the ground? While hugging? It's not like that. Li Fei ran over and grabbed his arm, trying to act cute. I tripped. Why are you even here? Some brothers from the mercenary group took a hunting mission. I'm heading out to help them, Li Jinni said, though his eyes never left me. He was sizing me up, and it made my skin crawl. You've reached the chi refinement stage? Yes, I managed to say. Perfect. My team is short-handed. Why don't you come along? My jaw nearly dropped. Was he serious? He wanted to drag me into a mercenary mission? Brother, Li Fei protested. He's only at the early stage of chi refinement. Your missions are dangerous. Oh, protecting him already. Li Jinni teased. Don't worry. I'm just taking the kid out for some experience. It's settled. Let's go. He didn't give me a choice. Li Fei had to stay behind because her level was too low and she needed to practice the sword moves I just taught her. I followed Li Jinni, feeling like I'd just been kidnapped into manual labor. On the way, he asked how I knew his sister. When he found out we were classmates and that I'd reached chi refinement in such a short time, he looked genuinely surprised. A few minutes later, we reached the meeting point. A group of rough-looking men were waiting. Boss, why'd you bring a pretty boy with you? A burly man with a thick beard asked, frowning at me. Does he even know which end of a sword to hold? He's my sister's classmate, Li Jinni explained. Met him on the road and brought him along for some training. This is Huzi. He's got a bit of a temper. I tried to be polite and said hello, but Huzi just snorted and looked away. The others were friendlier, at least. Once everyone was accounted for, we headed deep into the forest. Suddenly, a roar echoed through the trees. A Tier 2 twin-tailed scorpion lunged out of the brush. Umph, a mere scorpion? Huzi growled. He swung a pair of massive axes and charged. With a series of brutal, violent strikes, he tore the beast apart before it could even hiss. He wiped his blades, looking back at us. Stay sharp. It only gets tougher from here. Huzi was busy staring at the rest of the group when a black-spotted iron-bone snake lunged from the shadows. It was a Tier 3 beast, These things are lightning fast and massive, carrying enough venom to drop a full-grown warrior in seconds. Without an antidote, a single bite is a death sentence. Li Jianyi shouted a warning from behind, but the snake was already mid-air. Hu Zi spun around, trying to bring his axes up to defend himself, but a dark blur flashed past him. What this so fast? Hu Zi yelped, jumping back. When he looked up, his jaw hit the floor. The pretty boy he'd been mocking, me, was already engaging the beast. I moved like a ghost. Holding my heavy iron sword, I unleashed 3 rapid strikes, each leaving an afterimage in the air. The force of my blows actually knocked the Tier 3 snake backward. Li Jianyi stood there, frozen. Impossible, he muttered. The rest of the team looked like they'd seen a god. They knew I was only at the chi refinement stage. How could a student at that level go toe-to-toe with a Tier 3 monster and win? Watching my sword techniques, Li Jianyi finally realized the truth. I hadn't been hitting on his sister earlier. I really was teaching her top-tier swordsmanship. I didn't stop at 3 hits. I kept up a relentless, high-pressure assault. Hu Zi, the man who called me a pretty boy just minutes ago, looked completely dazed. Boss, one of the men whispered, turning to Li Jianyi. Where did you find this kid? That sword technique is insane. He's fighting a Tier 3 beast alone, and he's winning. I told you, Li Jianyi said, though he sounded just as shocked. He's my sister's classmate. A high schooler? The world is ending. Another teammate groaned. He just awakened his spirit root a month ago, and he's already this strong? That's terrifying. The way they looked at me changed instantly. Respect replaced the doubt in their eyes. Li Jianyi puffed out his chest, feeling proud of his sister's good eye. He knew right then that I was a dragon among men. Hu Zi, why's your face so red? Someone teased. Shut up, Hu Zi barked, his face flushing even deeper. The group burst into laughter, but the moment was cut short by a second roar. Another Tier 3 beast appeared. Hu Zi gripped his axes, ready to charge in and help me, but I didn't give him the chance. I moved. Asterisk boom. Boom. Asterisk. The ground shattered under my feet as I broke the sound barrier. Small craters formed where I stepped. Explosive steps. Li Jianyi gasped. He's mastered it to that level? Explosive steps is an Earth-grade movement technique. It's notoriously difficult to learn. Li Jianyi had tried to learn it himself, but failed, eventually giving the manual to his sister. He realized now that Li Fei must have given it to me. He wasn't even mad about the gift. He was just horrified by how quickly I'd mastered it. Boss, you're lying to us, one of the men complained. No high schooler can take on 2 Tier 3 beasts at once. You've been hiding a monster this whole time. Li Jianyi just shrugged. He didn't even try to explain anymore, because he knew they wouldn't believe a word of it. I swung my heavy iron sword again and again. Each strike sounded like a hammer hitting an anvil. But suddenly, there was a loud crack. As I channeled my spiritual energy for a finishing blow, the iron sword snapped in half. It couldn't handle the power. I froze. The snake hissed, sensing its opening, and lunged for my throat. I barely managed to roll backward, the venomous fangs missing me by an inch. That was way too close. Li Jianyi and the others finally snapped out of it and rushed in. Together, we finished off the 2 beasts. Are you okay? Li Jianyi asked, running over. He looked genuinely worried. If I'd died on his watch, his sister would have killed him. He looked at the broken shards of my sword and sighed. If the blade hadn't failed, I probably would have killed both monsters solo. I'm fine, I said, tossing the useless hilt aside. There went 30,000 yuan. I'd have to buy a better one when I got back to the city. Hu Zi walked up to me, his face still red with shame. I want to apologize for what I said earlier, he muttered. He wasn't a bad guy, just blunt. He saw that I'd risked my life to save him when he was caught off guard, and it humbled him. Don't worry about it, brother Hu, I smiled. We're on the same team. We look out for each other. Hu Zi reached into his storage ring and pulled out a massive, pitch-black heavy sword. It shimmered with a faint, magical light. I have this. It fits your fighting style perfectly. Take it. I took one look at the weapon and shook my eyes. No, I can't. That's way too valuable. You called me brother Hu, didn't you? He grumbled, shoving the sword into my hands. If you don't take it, you're insulting me. I looked at Li Jianyi for help, but he just patted my shoulder. Take it. It's a gift from the heart. Then, thank you, brother Hu. Next time we're in the city, the drinks are on me. I gripped the hilt. It was heavy, real heavy. My eyes widened when I felt the spiritual resonance. This was a low-grade earth tool. In a shop, this thing would cost at least 500,000 spiritual coins. Huzi was a real one for this. I was about to thank him again when Li Jiani suddenly tensed up. Something's moving over there. We all went silent, staring into the thick brush. The forest was too dense to see what was coming, but whatever it was big. Brotherly, don't panic, I said, stepping forward. I'll send my puppets to scout it out. I reached into my storage ring and pulled out 2 auxiliary-type puppets. With a quick flick of my fingers, I activated the seals and sent them darting into the thicket. They moved like shadows, vanishing into the brush in the blink of an eye. The mercenaries stood there, jaws dropping. What the hell was that? One of them stammered, his eyes nearly popping out of his head. Just some puppets I refined, I explained casually. They're great for scouting and luring monsters, though they aren't much for actual fighting. They stared at me like I was a freak of nature. The silence was getting awkward. Why is everyone looking at me like that? I asked, feeling a bit self-conscious. Nothing, one of them muttered. We're just wondering if all high schoolers are this talented nowadays. Huzi nudged Li Jiani. Hey, boss, is this kid your sister's boyfriend or just a friend? Why do you care? Li Jiani grunted. Because I have a sister too, Huzi said, his voice loud and serious. She's gorgeous. If he's not taken, I'm claiming him for my family. The group burst into laughter. I waved my hands frantically, my face heating up. Brother Hu, stop. That's not funny. I'm not joking, Huzi insisted. She's got a great figure. I'll introduce you when we get back. I felt a cold sweat break out. Being too talented was starting to feel like a liability. Suddenly, I felt a mental tug. One of my puppets had returned. Brotherly, there's a Tier 4 monster ahead, I reported. Li Jiani's eyes lit up. Tier 4. We drew our weapons and crept forward. As we cleared the brush, we saw it, a 4-eyed demon fox. The mercenaries let out a collective cheer. Why is everyone so happy? I whispered. Xiao Fan, our mission was to hunt this exact fox, Li Jiani explained, his eyes fixed on the beast. We need its eyes. We split up, flanking the fox from all sides. On Li Jiani's signal, we struck. The demon fox let out an eerie, piercing howl. Its 4 eyes began to glow with a brilliant, sapphire blue light. I made the mistake of looking directly into them. For a second, my soul felt like it was being pulled out of my body. Don't look at its eyes, Li Jiani roared. The shout snapped me out of it. My heart pounded against my ribs. That was too close. Pissed off, I gripped the heavy black sword Huzi had given me and charged. I activated my movement technique, each step creating a sonic boom that shook the ground. The Overlord's sword felt perfect in my hands. Even though it was a Tier 4 beast, my full-strength strike sent the fox reeling back several steps. This kid is a monster, Huzi muttered, watching me fight. He turned to Li Jiani. Boss, if he isn't your sister's boyfriend yet, I'm definitely. Who says he isn't? Li Jiani interrupted, his previous annoyance gone. He is now? I approve of this marriage. Both of them were looking at me like I was a prize stallion. I was speechless. I came here to hunt, not to get engaged to 2 different girls I'd never met. 20 minutes later, the fox let out one last mournful cry and collapsed. Its massive body hit the dirt with a heavy thud. Huzi pulled out a dagger, eager to collect the eyes, but he didn't even get 2 steps before a hidden projectile hissed through the air. Thwack, Art, Huzi screamed, clutching his calf as he fell to the ground. Brother Hu, I shouted, rushing to his side. Footsteps echoed from the shadows. 7 or 8 men in mercenary uniforms stepped out, surrounding us. The leader had bright red hair and a predatory, twisted smile. Bloodwolf, Li Jiani spat, his face contorting with rage. You son of a bitch, you dared to ambush my men? The Bloodwolf mercenary group were the sworn enemies of Li Jiani's Ghost Fox group. They usually stayed out of each other's way, but today, they were clearly looking for blood. We also have a mission for those fox eyes, the red-haired leader said, his smile widening. So, why don't you just hand them over? Hand them over to your mother, Huzi roared. He tried to stand, pulling the projectile from his leg, but his face suddenly went pale. He stumbled and crashed back down. Damn it, the blade was poisoned. Want the antidote? A man with a buzz cut named Wang Gang stepped forward, dangling a small vial. Kneel down and beg, and I might give it to you. Huzi growled, trying to force himself up, but the dizziness was winning. Don't move, brother Hu, I said, stepping in front of him. I've got this. Wang Gang looked at me and burst out laughing. A body refinement level 7 brat. Has the Ghost Fox group really sunk this low? You'll find out how low I am soon enough, I said, a cold smile spreading across my face. I hadn't killed a person before, but looking at these guys, it didn't feel much different from hunting monsters. Arrogant brat. Wang Gang lunged at me, aiming to end me in one strike. We crossed paths in a blur. A heavy thud followed. An arm hit the grass, blood spraying the leaves. Now you know my. Wang Gang started to brag, but he stopped. He looked down at the arm on the ground. It looked familiar. He looked at his own right shoulder. There was nothing there. He let out a blood-curdling scream. I didn't give him a second look. I tossed the antidote vial I'd snatched mid-swing to Huzi. Take this, brother Hu. I'm going to finish this trash. Huzi caught the vial, staring at me in pure shock. Kid, you're a legend. I don't respect my own parents as much as I respect you right now. I gave a grim smile and turned back to the fight. Wang Gang, clutching his stump, realized he was outmatched and tried to bolt. Going somewhere, I whispered. I used my movement technique, covering the distance in 3 explosive strides. The Overlord's sword whistled through the air, leaving a trail of afterimages. Schlink. A dull thud followed as Wang Gang's head rolled across the forest floor. The Blood Wolf leader froze, his eyes wide with horror as the head of his teammate stopped at his feet. The entire battlefield went silent. Everyone stopped fighting, their eyes locked on me. They finally realized that the high school kid was the most dangerous person in the woods. The mercenaries stared at me, their eyes wide with shock and pure horror. I was just a high school kid at the 7th stage of body refinement, yet I had just decapitated Wang Gang in 2 strokes. It felt like a sick joke. Wang Gang was a Foundation establishment cultivator. Even if he'd been careless, the gap between our realms should have been an ocean. Kid, I'm going to tear you apart. Xuelang roared. His face was contorted with rage as he lunged toward me. Lin Yuan, look out! Li Jinni shouted, trying to intercept him. But 2 other Blood Wolf members blocked his path, pinning him down. I didn't flinch. You want me dead? Let's see if you have the teeth for it. I gripped the Overlord heavy sword with one hand and activated my movement technique. Asterisk boom. Boom. Asterisk each step I took broke the sound barrier, the air rippling with the sheer force of my speed. We collided. A massive shockwave sent me reeling back 7 or 8 steps. Xuelang, the terrifying Golden Core leader, was forced back 3. No way. One of the mercenaries gasped. Boss Xuelang is a Golden Core master. Is that kid on drugs? It must be his movement and martial arts, another muttered, his voice trembling. But even with Earth-grade skills, how can he cross 2 major realms? My hands were numb from the impact. My heart hammered against my ribs as I realized Xuelang was a monster. Even at full power, I was barely holding on. I don't care what kind of freak you are, Xuelang hissed, his eyes gleaming with a murderous resolve. You die today. He didn't give me a second to breathe. He whipped out a long spear, thrusting it with such speed that the wind from the tip stung my cheeks. I swung the Overlord's sword, using the spear-breaking stance from the Dugun 9 swords. My defense was a whirlwind of steel, airtight and relentless. The sound of clashing metal and the thunder of my explosive steps filled the clearing. To everyone's disbelief, Xuelang's rain of attacks couldn't break through my guard. Devil, the kid is a devil, someone screamed. Break, Xuelang yelled, losing his cool. He threw his entire weight into a massive strike. The force sent me flying. The Overlord sword nearly slipped from my numb fingers. Before I could recover, Xuelang's spear followed, aimed straight for my skull with the cold stench of death. Brother, watch out! Huzi roared, hurling his axe to deflect the blow. The axe was batted aside like a toy, and the spear kept coming. Clang! A dull thud echoed. Everyone expected my head to explode, but a puppet had appeared out of nowhere, taking the hit for me. It shattered instantly, but it bought me the second I needed to roll away. You got lucky once, Xuelang snarled, resetting his stance. Let's see how many more times you can dodge. Screw you, I bellowed. If I'm going down, I'm taking a piece of you with me. Suddenly, my vision shifted. My eyes burned, turning a deep, bloody red. The world slowed down. Xuelang's lightning-fast spear, thrust, now looked like it was moving through water. I tilted my head, the tip grazing my ear, and swung the Overlord's sword with every ounce of strength I had left. Boom! The impact was deafening. Xuelang's body was blasted back 15 meters, tumbling through the dirt. What just happened? The boss, he got blown away? The mercenaries were panicking. It was one thing for a kid to defend himself, but to overpower a golden core master? It made no sense. They started wondering if Xuelang had spent too much time at the brothels lately to be losing to a high schooler. How? Xuelang coughed, his eyes wide with terror. How did you dodge that? Go ask your ancestors in hell, I growled. I charged. I felt like a wild beast, my speed and power multiplying. My reflexes were sharp enough to see every twitch of his muscles. I didn't give him a chance. I ignored his screams for mercy and swung. Squelch. Xuelang's head left his shoulders. The leader of the Bloodwolf mercenaries was dead. The boss is dead. Run. He's a monster. Run for your lives. The remaining mercenaries broke. Any courage they had vanished instantly as they scrambled into the brush, wishing they had extra legs to run faster. Li Jianyi and Hu Zi stood there, frozen. I could see the same question in their eyes. Is this kid really just a high school student? As the enemies disappeared, the red tint in my vision faded. A wave of bone-deep exhaustion hit me. My legs turned to jelly, and the world started to spin. Li Jianyi rushed over and caught me before I hit the dirt. Lin Yuan, you okay? I'm fine, brotherly, I wheezed. Just tired. What happened to me? You don't remember? Hu Zi asked, staring at me. I remember the fight, I explained awkwardly. I just don't know why my body suddenly changed. Li Jianyi looked thoughtful. If I had to guess, you activated your bloodline power in a moment of crisis. My heart skipped a beat. My bloodline. I knew I had the ancient emperor bloodline, but it was only at 1% purity. Could that small amount really do this? Bloodlines are powerful, Li Jianyi continued, but they're a double-edged sword. If you use them before you're strong enough, they can damage your foundation or even kill you. I felt a chill. I had been planning to use system points to boost my bloodline to 100%, but if 1% left me this drained, 100% would probably turn me into ash. I needed to be careful. The mission was over. We headed back to the city, and I promised Hu Zi we'd grab a drink soon. I dragged my aching body home, wanting nothing more than a bed. Meanwhile, Li Jianyi made it back to his house. His sister, Li Fei, ran out to meet him before he even crossed the threshold. Brother, you're back. Where's Lin Yuan? You didn't pick on him, did you? She asked, her voice tight with worry. Li Jianyi's face twitched. Pick on him? The kid just decapitated a golden core master. Pick on him? Are you kidding? That kid is a freak. Brother, talk to me. Li Fei pressed. Look, I didn't touch him, Li Jianyi said, looking his sister dead in the eye. In fact, I have some advice for you. Next time you ask him out, wear something shorter. Be more enthusiastic. Li Fei stared at him, completely baffled. Are you sick? What kind of brother says that to his sister? I'm perfectly fine, Li Jianyi huffed. I'm just telling you, Hu Zi already has his eye on the kid. He wants to set Lin Yuan up with his sister, and she's a real beauty. If you don't move fast, you're going to lose him. Li Jianyi's tone was dead serious. If this had been before the mission, he would have had to think long and hard about his sister dating Lin Yuan. He would have observed the boy, judged his character, and acted like a protective wall. But after what he'd just witnessed, he was 250% satisfied with this potential brother-in-law. Brother, let Hu Zi introduce whoever he wants, Li Fei said, her cute face flushing a deep red. I believe in Lin Yuan. He's not the type of person to be so casual with his feelings. She was embarrassed that her brother was giving her such ridiculous advice, telling her to wear shorter clothes and be more enthusiastic. It was mortifying, but at the same time, she was glowing. It meant her brother finally approved of him. On the other side of town, I finally made it back home. I collapsed onto my bed and pulled up my status panel to check my progress. Name * Lin Yuan realm * late stage chi refinement, 91.38%. Spirit root asterisk empty spirit root bloodline asterisk ancient earth bloodline. 2% purity. Constitution asterisk chaos Tao body techniques asterisk Dugan 9 swords. Earth grade high, perfection. Flash step, earth grade low, level 8. Jade ruler manual, special, level 3. Weapon asterisk overlord sword. Gold grade. System points asterisk 13,166. Seeing that my bloodline purity had jumped to 2% after that life or death struggle made me uneasy. I realized I had to work twice as hard to raise my cultivation level. If I didn't, the power of the bloodline would eventually overwhelm my body and tear me apart from the inside. Suddenly, my phone buzzed with a message. It was from Wang Dazhuang. Brother Yuan, I got it. The heart of a tier 4 nether demon tiger. Come and get it. He sent a location pin right below the text. My spirits lifted instantly. I shook off the exhaustion and headed out. A few minutes later, I met the big guy at the coordinates. Fatty, you're incredible, I said, giving him a thumbs up. I asked you to keep an eye out for a tier 4 heart, but I didn't expect you to actually snag one. How much do I owe you? Wang Dazhuang waved his hands frantically, his face turning red. Brother Yuan, look at you talking about money. My family owns mines. I'm not short on cash. Besides, what kind of relationship do we have? Talking about money hurts our friendship. Just take it. I laughed and punched him lightly on the shoulder. I was genuinely moved. Even though I had money now, Dazhuang had been a loyal friend since the day we met. He was a real brother. Haha, Brother Yuan, you said it yourself. Dazhuang's eyes lit up, and he started rubbing his hands together shyly. Those puppets you gave me, they're so useful. I was wondering if maybe... My face stiffened. You little brat. I was wondering why you were so eager to give me a tier 4 heart in the middle of the night. You were plotting against me. No, I was just asking, he stammered, though his squinty eyes were pleading with me. I sighed and pulled several puppets out of my storage ring. I have a few high-grade mystery puppets here. Take them for free. Just keep an eye out for more materials for me. I handed them over one by one. When he realized I was giving him 5 of them, he literally dropped to his knees. Brother Yuan, you're my real father. From now on, I'll call my old man brother and you dad. Get lost, I laughed, kicking him lightly in the backside. And keep your mouth shut about me making these. Don't go broadcasting it. Don't worry, Brother Yuan. Even if someone tries to pry my mouth open with pliers, I won't say a word. After chatting for a bit, I headed home. I didn't start crafting immediately. My Jade Ruler manual had just hit level 3, and the success rate for crafting a spirit-grade puppet was still less than 1%. Tier 4 materials were too hard to find a gamble like that. I needed to grind my proficiency until I was absolutely sure. I took a shower, grabbed a bite to eat, and checked my phone one last time before bed. I immediately saw that Dazhuang was causing a scene in the school group chat again. He had lined up all 8 puppets I'd given him, the 3 from before and the 5 new ones, and posted a selfie standing right in the middle of them. The chat was exploding. Holy crap, Fatty! How much for a puppet? Sell me one. My dad's in real estate. We've got plenty of cash. I just need one of those badass puppets. Fatty, if you sell me one, you're my new dad. Everyone was drooling. Dazhuang had been a king at the school's hunting grounds lately. With those puppets, he was slaughtering mutated beasts left and right. His cultivation was skyrocketing, and at this rate, he actually had a shot at the top universities. Then, Zhang Ting tagged him. Dazhuang, can you give me one of those? Please. Her voice in the follow-up audio clip was sugary sweet, completely dropping her usual arrogant act. Dazhuang didn't hold back. Take that act somewhere else. You're making me sick. Don't call me brother, and don't call me dad. You're getting nothing. He hated her. Back when she was my girlfriend, she acted all innocent. But the second I failed to awaken a spirit root and became the school's laughingstock, she dumped me in front of everyone. Wang Dazhuang. You're going too far. Zhang Ting snapped back, humiliated in front of the whole class. I'm going too far. Other students want to buy them, and I won't even sell to them. Do you think your mouth is made of gold? You think you can just ask and I'll hand one over? Where's your shame? Is it buried in your backside? Dazhuang's tongue was like a blade. Zhang Ting sent a final, screaming voice message. Wang Dazhuang. You wait. I'll make you regret this. I put the phone down and smiled. Over the next few days, I threw myself into training. My jade ruler manual proficiency climbed steadily as I churned out more puppets. One afternoon, while I was out in the field testing my latest batch, I heard a series of terrifying roars. I looked up to see a group of cultivators running toward me, faces pale with terror. "Run! Get out of here!" one of them screamed. "A beast nest just opened up in the woods. It's the second one this month. There are tier 3 monsters in there." They scrambled past me as a pack of beasts burst out from the trees behind them. The monsters saw me standing there and lunged, snarling. I didn't move until they were inches away. Then, I drew the Overlord sword. With a burst of sound, I activated Flash Step. To these monsters, I was a blur. Even the tier 2 beasts couldn't touch me. I swung the massive sword like it weighed nothing, cleaving through them in single strikes. Asterisk ding. Killed tier 2 poison wasp. Plus 30 points. Plus 4,885 cultivation. Asterisk ding. Killed tier 2 twin-headed turtle. Plus 36 points. Plus 5,885 cultivation. Asterisk. The retreating cultivators stopped and stared, their jaws dropping. Who is that guy in the mask? Look at that movement. The beast can't even get close. Forget his movement. Look at that sword. It looks like a coffin lid, and he's one-shotting tier 2 monsters. Amidst the shock and awe of the crowd, I felt my Flash Step technique surge, the sonic booms echoing through the clearing as I carved a path through the horde. My Flash Step proficiency suddenly hit the 9th level, reaching perfection. In that instant, my strength took a massive leap forward. I moved through the battlefield like a ghost, leaving a trail of afterimages behind me. To the weaker cultivators watching, I was nothing more than a blur their eyes couldn't follow. Before this, there was always a tiny pause between my bursts of speed. Now, with the technique perfected, I moved with seamless fluidity. I drifted through the beast tide like a leaf in the wind. Everywhere I passed, monsters collapsed. Even the tier 3 beasts couldn't hold out for more than 3 strikes of my sword. It was a slaughter. The surrounding cultivators finally snapped out of their shock. They scrambled to pull out their phones, recording videos to upload to the local forums. The titles were frantic. "Brothers, a real big shot has appeared in our city." The comments section exploded instantly. "Holy crap, isn't that the super genius from our Mangshi Middle School? Who is this guy? I still don't know his name. Who cares who he is? He's from our school, and that's all that matters." The video was quickly shared into my class group chat. Class 3 to 7 went wild. Zhang Ting saw the messages and felt her heart race. A few days ago, she had waited outside Old Wang's material shop for hours, hoping to accidentally meet this mysterious genius, but she ended up catching a cold instead. Now that she saw his location, she didn't waste a second. She dressed up carefully, applying her best makeup, and headed toward the city gates for a beautiful encounter. I had no idea she was coming for me. My face was hidden behind a mask, so I wasn't worried about being recognized. After finishing off the last of the beasts, I felt my aura swell. My cultivation had finally reached the peak of the chi refinement stage. I just needed one last push to break through to the foundation establishment stage. As I gathered the monster materials and walked toward the city gate, a figure blocked my path. It was Zhang Ting. "Is something wrong?" I asked. My voice was cold. I wasn't the simp who used to inhabit this body. Seeing her fail to awaken a spirit root had shown me her true colors, and her recent attention-seeking behavior in the group chat made me feel disgusted. I want to be friends with you," Zhang Ting said. She played with her hair and subtly adjusted her collar to show more skin. She was confident in her looks. She was a school beauty, after all. She believed that if she was proactive enough, no man could resist her. "Not interested," I said. I didn't even slow down as I walked right past her. "You." Her smile froze. She stood there in disbelief for a moment before chasing after me, but she couldn't keep up with my pace. She stopped, stomping her foot in frustration. "Hey, I waited for you at the material shop the other day until I got sick. I like you. I'm going to pursue you, and I won't give up even if you reject me." She seemed moved by her own devotion, but by the time she finished her sentence, I was already gone. It felt like she had swallowed a fly. Someone recorded the whole rejection and posted it to the group chat. Wang Dazhuang mocked her immediately. Looks like a certain green tea girl is acting thirsty again. Too bad my bro didn't give her the time of day. Ha ha ha. I ignored the drama, sold my extra materials, and bought the components needed for a spirit-grade puppet. Back at home, I spent a full week focusing on my jade ruler manual. My proficiency climbed from the 3rd level to the 4th. I pulled out the materials. I felt a surge of confidence. After an hour of intense focus, the process was complete. A spirit-grade puppet, 100 times harder to make than a choice-grade one, stood before me. It was a finely crafted humanoid figure. My heart pounded as I inspected it. I couldn't wait to see what it could do. I headed back to the valley outside the city. A Tier 2 beast emerged from the brush, roaring as it lunged at me. Go, I commanded. The spirit-grade puppet blurred forward. With a single, brutal punch, it exploded the monster's head. It was an instant kill. I stood there, eyes wide, taking a sharp breath. I knew a puppet made from Tier 4 materials would be strong, but this was beyond my expectations. Tier 2 monsters were no longer a challenge. I decided to take it up a notch. I led the puppet toward the Black Bear Woods, a territory notorious for Tier 3 beasts. As soon as we stepped into the shadows of the trees, a massive bear, twice the size of a man, stood up and let out a deafening roar.